Past all of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this. And onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from the number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Springs Eternal as a new season starts. The 18th one here in the World GT Championship, and it all kicks off here from Fuji Speedway. 3 drivers last season ended as champions, and now they go for their title defense with a whole mess of others trying to make sure that they don't get their second title in a row. What will we see in these twin 45-minute races? We'll have it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, everybody. My name is Jeremy Scott. Nathan Richards is alongside me, and of course, also Hugo is going to be providing us with all of the great angles that we have of this twin 45-minute race. Nathan, we have 3 drivers who are trying to defend off of their title from season 17. A lot of unknowns going into the season. What do you think we're going to expect?
I mean, there's going to be chaos for sure. We've got 60 drivers on the grid this season, a giant grid full of drivers of all different abilities. Of course, we have our pros, our pro-ams, and then our ams as well. But I think it's safe to say all of them have got the skill and the pace. It's just about that consistency and who tends to be quick on just a whole different level. You know, those drivers at the top we've seen win championships before, the likes of Dino Lombardi, who won it last season. One of those that is kind of better than everybody, no matter what anyone else does, he can always drive that little bit further. It's drivers like that that are going to be winning championships here this season, but also we head off to 12 brilliant venues over this championship as well. Lots of different tracks that have got all different characteristics. So either way, I think we're in for a great championship.
Yeah, we'll be jet setting across the world, as you see on your screen here. Today, we start off at Fuji International Speedway. Next week, we fly over to a newer track of the service. It's the Shell V-Power Motorsport at the Bend in Australia. We're back in the UK for Silverstone, Algarve, my favorite, Road America. Then we go about 6 hours to the southeast to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and then fly over to the famous Circuit de la Sarthe, over to the 24-hour Du Mans, and then off to Spa, Barcelona. And then you go over to Montreal for Circuit Gilles Villeneuve, into California for Sonoma, and we end the season at the world-famous Daytona International Speedway, all 3.5 miles of the Roval, which is a feature course. And, of course, a lot of sports car fans and drivers always clamor for a race on the high banks off of the eastern Florida coast. So, as you said, Nathan, it's an absolutely fantastic schedule for this season number 18, and it has basically everything that every kind of driver wants.
Yeah, certainly. And looking on the screen as well, if people aren't sure what technical, feature and endurance are, there are 3 race formats that we have for this season, and each one of them brings something new to the table, something different. Of course, one thing to note is that for our technical and feature race formats, we also have a reversed grid involved as well, which can range from 15 to 25, and then the possibility of a fully reversed grid heading into that second race. And things like that definitely make the races more interesting, because some of those that we normally see at the front, they're going to be having to start further back, and that's when we get to see their racecraft rather than that just raw pace. So those who we expect to see in the top 5, top 10, they're going to have a bit of a struggle heading into that second race later on.
And that's going to make things interesting. We have just wrapped up qualifying here for this first race. James Boomey, your fastest, with 38.7. He'll be alongside Marley Joffe in the 909 Mercedes. Row 2 is Ross McFarlane and Johan Rauer. Then you've got Anders Meyer and Alexander Davison in row 3. Checking out row 4, it's Michael Gray, your Pro-Am fastest qualifier, with Martin Toth alongside. That's Arthur Tuttle and Michael Advaka in the WSR Mustang. Great to see the Mustang on the grid. Matthias Pirinen and Tom Griggs in row 6. Take a look at row 7. It's Harrison Crowther and Dennis Grabodsky. Then it's Joey Petrick and William Guthrie. You got to go back to row 9 for Jack Osborne and Ben Altria, your fastest in the AM category. That's Andy Archer, Tommy Vidal, Eric Muska, and Alistair Kirk in row 11. Row 12, Adam Tompkins and Aiden Carter in number 42 Lamborghini.
Indeed, and then
get to the next row. Go ahead.
Do you want to carry on? Sorry there, Jeremy. You cut out a bit for me.
Let me say my voice a little bit. Go ahead.
So 25th place we have Dickie Simnor and then Kevin Simpson, and then we have another of our AMs, that's Brian Lyons, next to Franek Shikowski, and then we have Tom Griffiths and David Mendonca, our top 30. And then we have Jesse Payne-Wilkins in 31st alongside Daniel McCauley, Phil Samways and Adam Watson next in 34th. And then we have Jonathan Walker and Joe Coffin, our top 36. Next we have John Williams and Benjamin Gregory. And then to round off our top 40, it's Drew Fletcher and Hakon Eid Lindmo.
As we take a look at the next row, it's Howard Hassan and Ben Bennyworth. Then you go back to Elliot Roberts alongside Chris Chatterton. Jacques Eva and Adam Hedgecock will be alongside each other. They'll be in front of Taylor Lane and Paul Smith in the 24th row. You move back to the 25th row, and it's Colin Sampson and John Roberts. And rounding out your field, Oriel Duran in the number 14 Acura. So 51 cars will take to the start as we are on our pace lap. Track conditions not too bad either. 24 degrees Celsius, your ambient temperature, 34 degrees track temperature, also 85% humidity. As we know, it is summertime, so it's just going to be just a wee bit humid, and mostly cloudy skies at 9:37 a.m. sim time. So we're on our formation lap as the cars weave and bob their way. Final thoughts before we get into this first 45-minute race.
It's going to be an interesting one. Turn 1 on the first lap. I know it's, quite a long race, but I'm sure the drivers are certainly not scared to try and get moves done on that first lap. So turn 1 is definitely a corner to watch out for on this opening lap.
Well, the iRacing BMW pace car getting set to make that turn into pit road. Bomi and Jaffe are on the front row. They are getting ready for the first race of the season. Season number 18 of the World GT Championship. As we're watching the field, looks also nice and formed up as they come around that final corner here at Fuji. Glad to have you with us. Pace car pulls off, and it's going to be an early start zone, which is technically the FIA finish line as they slowly work their way down that front straightaway, and it's a long one here at Fuji. We get set for the first race of the season. Glad to have you with us as the field works their way down. Green flag, as you heard from the starter, and we are underway as Turthel already gets into an early, Bomi and Jaffe already getting into an early start. Lots of passing 2, 3, 4 wide around turn number 1 as everybody so far so good. Looks nice and clean, about as clean as you can ask for 51 cars at the start.
Yeah, indeed. I think it was Royer there looking to make a move on McFarlane, but couldn't quite get ahead and slots back into 4th. That's someone going off wide. I think that might be Alex Davison or Anders Meyer further behind, off through turn number 2 as we head our way through on lap number 1. Of course, a very clean start, which I've got to say was a certain surprise for me. I expected a few cars to go off at that first corner, but they all made it through quite nicely. But as we make our way through into the middle part of the track now, this is where we're going to see cars start to go side by side and look to make some early advantages.
Yeah, this is where we start to get into the technical portion of the program. And of course, also something that I noticed here in the grid, our defending AM champion actually is made the promotion up to Pro-Am, Aiden Carter. So we'll follow that and see how he goes on to work his way around as everybody working through the second half of this circuit. It's still Bomi as your leader, Jaffe not too far behind, but McFarlane. Oh, we got a spinner. It's several spinners, actually. One of them's a McLaren. And the Cal liveried Mercedes underway. Looks like 2 McLarens involved with that one. We'll get a replay here, but already some early trouble for some drivers.
Indeed, as we head our way back down to turn 1 once again, you can see all the cars just following each other in that slipstream. What's happened there? Right at the final corner, a couple of cars are involved, one of them being one of our Mustangs, and also a McLaren there involved in that one. So I'm not sure what's happened there. That would have been out of the final corner. So possibly someone running a little bit wide on the exit and forcing somebody else off into the barriers. But we continue on down to that first couple of corners. Once again, a few more cars going side by side, having a little battle as we head in towards turns 2 and 3. And of course, as this race starts to progress and as we go to the final couple of laps, turn 1, 2 and 3 are going to be such a crucial zone to get correct.
Well, that's the replay there that we had with the spinning McLaren there. And, of course, looks like that was, just a spin and a sympathy spin there for both McLarens. And, of course, the Mercedes had nowhere to go. So, just one of those things, at least there was no gravel there. That's a saving grace as we take a look at yet another replay. Oh, looks like it was Payne-Wilkins a little bit of a jump there from McLaren hitting those bread loaves there. But yeah, that Mercedes that was involved in the early incident just unfortunately caused another one. So Payne Wilkins able to get back going. We got another spin back there off of turn number 11. That's Adam Watson, one of the drivers we were watching earlier on. And Watson's actually our defending Pro-Am champion this year. So not so good for Watson moving up to the pro ranks this year.
No, definitely not, as of course Watson has been up there so many times on so many different occasions, and a bit of a tap and he gets sent round, and I think that could have been a teammate of his, as it was the exact same livery car that sent him round. And I mean, if that's the case, I wouldn't want to be part of that debrief later on this evening.
Later on this evening, I wonder if they're going to have a quick debrief in between two races. Rule number 1 of motorsports, don't hit your teammate. Here comes Davidson to the inside of Rower. And, of course, also got some great battles here throughout the middle of the pack. Crowther trying to get around Toth for 7th place. Actually, Vidal right now that we're on board with. And that's in the number 37 in the Pro-Am. So here's how we designate the classes. You see the yellow there for Vidal. That is a yellow, so that means he's in the Pro-Am class. If you see somebody with green numbers, they're in the Pro class. The red numbers, that is the AM class. There you go. Alexander Davidson sitting in 5th place, chasing down Rauer, the number 69, 55 behind 69, looking to the outside of looks like a 100R, which is a very tight turn right there. Very fast, I should say, as they come off at 9-10, I should say, through Dunlop.
Indeed, and I think Davidson's one of those, as he does get forced a little bit wide there as they head their way through. I think he's certainly a driver that we're looking at this season, thinking he could be yet again a championship contender, of course. Back in season 17, last time around, he finished P2, the runner-up to Dino Lombardi, and then the season before, he was that championship winner. So, certainly a lot of pressure on for him this season, as he has a nice little battle there, that being with Johan Ruwa, as we head our way back down towards turn number 1. 5 minutes into this race, and we've already seen quite a lot of argy-bargy by our drivers as we go back down towards our braking zone. Of course, you can see there, tucking right up to the inside line to prevent any moves being made. And then, of course, Anders Meyer behind as well. He's looking to try and jump up into the top 5 as we head down into turn number 1. We've got 4 cars here in this battle for P4.
You're looking live at Martin Toth and his driver cam. We've got 3 driver cams. One of those is Toth, Paul Smith, and Frank Sikorsky will show throughout the day. But Davidson trying to hold off the likes of Rauer, Meyer, and Toth. We saw earlier on also Joffe just letting McFarlane go by for that 2nd place. And now trying to chase down our leader, James Boomey, as they are working their way around what is known as the hairpin. They'll set themselves up for turn 7 and turn 8, which necessarily I don't really see as a turn here, but a lot of corner numbers here. 16 turns on this circuit as they go through 300R, set themselves up for the Dunlop corner. We've seen a lot of mayhem through this little sequence of corners, but no surprise here. You got big booming GT3 cars around this circuit. You get a tight complex like that, Nathan, you're gonna see some sort of mess.
Certainly, but I also think, as chaotic as it can be heading into Dunlop, it's also a great opportunity to make moves, because some drivers are going to be scared and back out. So if I'm heading into Dunlop and someone's up my inside, I'm just going to let them go. There's no point battling that. I don't want to be spun round at turn 10. So it's a good opportunity for your Max Verstappen's out on track to look to make some moves, as we do see here. Tom Griffiths, who hit that yellow curb, and of course we've seen earlier on with that red McLaren, they're not friendly to you at all. So, from what we've seen, just don't hit the yellow curbs.
Oh, that's easier said than done. The Formula car, you could easily see that as Tompkins up under the draft of Simnor. It's a Pro-Am and Simnor Am and Tompkins, and they're going side by side. So Tompkins Simnor going to shut the door on him going through turn 1. But yeah, easier said than done, especially when you have these cars. A lot of them have the huge front ends that you really can't see too much. So I'm surprised that these curbings are really affecting these cars. You'd think they would be a little bit kinder, but then again, stranger things have happened.
Oh yeah, certainly, and I'm sure we're going to see a lot of strange things and weird things happen over the course of the season, and probably this evening as well. We can't count that out at all. As here We do see a few cars making their way through, of course. I think another great thing that we get with this championship as well is because we're on the R-Racing platform and, you know, how realistic the GT3s are, we have so many different cars taking part, and as we go through the course of a race, we do get to see which cars are better in certain areas. So I think that's another great thing as well. There's so much variety here in this championship. Heading into some races, you're going to have someone who's flying off in front. For example, James Boomey this evening. Give it a couple of race weekends later, it could be Ross McFarlane or Marley Joff who are right up at the front. So for these pro drivers, those right at the top, these little differences between the cars make such a difference, don't they?
Yeah, they really do, and it's amazing how close these GT3 cars are with all of their differences that they have, how some of these organizations, especially iRacing, have gotten them together. You're on board with Frank Sikorsky, currently 25th, hunting down Tommy Vidal, but behind him, he's got Dan McAuley trying to hold him off. There's Michael Gray as well, holding off Arthur Thurtle, but no big deal there. Gray is your Pro-Am leader as of now. We're about 10 minutes into this race, and to see a Pro-Am driver in the top 10 is great, because you got to go all the way back to 15th to find the next Pro-Am driver. That's William Guthrie. Of course, Guthrie also having to hold off the likes of Archer and Muska there in 16th and 17th.
Indeed, and I think having Michael Gray fighting in the top 10, you know, perfectly fine with the pro, shows that he's got the pace, and, you know, maybe give it next season, he could be up into that pro spot. But I think also it gives him some confidence knowing that if he can fight with the pros, he's got a very good chance of being right up at the top for the Pro-Ams as well. So it's just about keeping yourself consistent and not battling too hard as well with some of the pro drivers. If you've got someone like Arthur Thurtle there looking to make a move, don't fight too hard, because that could end in contact, it could end in some damage, and then that does put you under pressure from the other Pro-Ams further back. So sometimes it's best to pick your battles more than just battle everybody that comes up behind you. As we do see here, Michael Doka, P14, also in a nice little battle here as they're heading their way through turn number 16 to head back down towards turn 1. He is on the back there of Tom Griggs, I believe, as we make our long way down to the first braking zone. Of course, around a track like this, Fuji, we have, I think, the longest straight in the world, or at least one of them. And Jeremy, this gives the drivers so much opportunity, because you've got that chance that you can go from 3 or 4 tenths back here.
And, you know, here's the thing. This necessarily isn't the longest time that these drivers will be on the loud pedal this season. We still got Spa to go to later on, but it's still a long test of being in a straight line and catching a draft. As Sikorsky down to 27th, trying to get around McAuley for position. Again, that is your battle for the bottom step of the AM podium, as Ben Altria sitting in 21st, your AM leader so far this first race here. Sikorsky just watching some battles. You know, that's kind of something you want to do early on. You know, see who's fast where, but you've got a pro driver and a Pro-Am driver ahead of you. It might be a battle of, let's see what they're doing.
Certainly, and I think this battle for second and third also gives some confidence to Ben Altria, who's leading the AMS at the moment, and I believe he was third last season behind Daniel McCauley and Aidan Carter in the championship. So considering, once again, he's up into that top 21, higher than he probably should be on paper. Another great driver, just gives them confidence, similar to what we said earlier on with Michael Gray, as we are making our way through. Once again, 33 minutes to go here in this race. So we've had a bit of a quiet start, I think, compared to what we expected. But sometimes, the first round of the championship, we do have quite a start, because these drivers now are in that situation of learning how different drivers battle, how people defend and attack. You've kind of got to learn everything before you can start going all out, because you never know what a driver's going to do. But give it a race or two, you can start to predict what certain drivers will do in terms of moving over, how early or brake they're late, because, yeah, again, we've got drivers of so many different abilities.
And Altria's got to be thinking that he's got a great shot at the title now, because Carter, as we said, has moved up into the Pro-Am. So he probably feels like he's got a clear path as we're looking behind Aiden Carter at the back of the Lamborghini. That's got to feel great for somebody like Altria and the rest of the field.
Yeah, certainly. And I think also Carter is only one position ahead of Ben Altria, so it shows that Ben's also got the pace to be in the programs. If Aiden's got the pace and he was a championship leader last season, you know, Ben Altria's also got that opportunity possibly next season to be fighting right up at the top end of things. As here we see Johan Rua, of course, sitting, must have made a mistake. I was going to say sitting up in the top 5, but has got a bit wide, used that curb a little bit too much in contact, and unfortunately losing many positions, down now to P11 in this opening race.
Yeah, the exit of the hairpin seems so inviting. You just get back on the gas, and sometimes that back end just does not want to plant as we're working our way through the final portion of the circuit around 13, 14, and 15. There's Dickie Simnor in 23rd spot. Trying to shake down one of the Mustangs ahead of him. That's Tompkins, we've talked about. So Pro-Am and Tompkins, your pro driver there, is we're watching Tommy Vidal sitting back there as your interested spectator in that battle. Too far away really to make anything happen. And of course, now we're still early on in the race, Nathan, where these drivers are, you know, still learning the draft, and I would dare to say still learning each other a little bit.
Yeah, they've got to be, especially when we have so many different cars as well. They've also got to learn, you know, where the cars are slow and fast around this circuit. As Tommy Vidal, a driver I've seen many times in my commentary journey, he's always one of those drivers that he's never at the top end of things, but he's never right at the back. He's always in that mid-pack, always going for some feisty battles. Is Tommy Vidal, and at the moment sits behind the back of Dickie Simonor in 23rd. As we make our way through and looking for a bit of a send. That's a late move to the inside, and I think scared both of them, never mind just Vidal. They're still going to carry it side by side as they head their way through turns 8 and 9, but I think that could be a move done. It was a bit of a brave one, and I don't think he expected to go for it himself there.
No, he didn't, but he's still in position there to make a pass. And of course, one, maybe two positions might be lost here. So you got Mustang versus Mustang. Oh, a little bit of a jump there. And that's going to be a problem, I think, the rest of the race. So drivers coming off of turn 11 just a little bit wide and catching some air. And they really want to be cautious. You know, in spite of this not having an issue in race 2, race 1, the longer you do that, the worse that you are going to have those issues. So we've got great racing really all throughout. But yeah, I'm just worried about some of these drivers who hit these sausage curbs and think, oh, I'm invincible. Well, it's just going to take one where they're not going to be invincible, and it's going to be a race ender.
Yeah, they are lethal, aren't they, the sausage curbs? No matter what type of car you're in, you never want to use the sausage curbs. Keep away from them at all possibilities. But of course, like we said earlier on, a lot easier said than done. I mean, if I'm driving around here, I'm probably hitting them 2 or 3 times a lap. As we are seeing a move being made further up the field. I think that's Simnor there. And Grabowski, that's for 23rd place. As Grabowski there, part of the Altitude 3M esports team, gets that move done up into 23rd. Of course, part of the pro category, and definitely not ideal to be down in 23rd place. But of course, when we have that reverse grid for race 2, there's always a possibility that he could be near the front end of things if we do get possibly a 22nd or 23rd reverse grid.
And that's something that we really haven't talked about too much because the racing's just been so good. But let's keep one eye on the racing and talk about that bump going into Dunlop Corner as this battle for 13th heats up, and watching that kind of on timing here. You got 2 pros and 2 pro-ams involved in this each. So we'll keep an eye on this, but let's talk about that little aspect, the little crinkle in the plan, mind you, of the reverse grid. It's something I think probably should be done in more series.
Yeah, definitely. It's quite an interesting feature, something a bit different, and of course we have that possibility of it being 15th reversed up to 25th, and then we go for it all and go a full reverse grid, which would be insane, chaotic, but I'm sure we'd love it, especially us here in the commentary box, Jeremy. So I think it's such a great little feature to add to a race weekend or a race evening. But then, of course, for the endurance race, when we have just one race, there's no reverse grid whatsoever. So for some of these drivers who are typically further down, the technical and the feature formats are probably their best friends, I think.
Tommy Vidal is falling off like a rock. I saw Adam Watson go into the pit, so I'm thinking that might be related as we're watching. And indeed, yeah, it's going to be related as both those cars, 2 cannot go into 1. And Vidal with a spin off there right around the hairpin, I believe that is, and you can't go that. Okay, so decides to try and reverse. Barriers don't move from what I've heard.
No, and I don't think that kind of helped him, did it? And luckily, he didn't come into contact with anybody, because that certainly could have happened at that section of the circuit. That was a bit of a close one heading in towards Dunlop. Of course, sometimes, because of the varying different lines drivers take, you do get a little bit caught off guard heading into Dunlop, because there's so many different lines you can take in, and so many different points where you can brake. So there's a lot of times where we see people do get a bit caught off guard and end up slamming into the back of someone. But luckily, it's happened more mid-corner rather than on the entry, as we have Jeremy Petrick here, P14, of course, down towards the lower things of the pro category, but still only 13 seconds off the leader. After nearly 20 minutes, it's not too bad at all, especially if you are normally at the back of your category, of course, part of the Project 91 racing team. And further ahead there, we have got a move for second place.
Yeah, Davidson finally gotten around McFarland, so it's WSR 2 and 3. Now they set their sights on Boomy, who's a full 2 seconds ahead. They just need Jaffe to catch up to them, and maybe they can draft in 26 minutes, 2 seconds. They might be able to pick that up. Here's the replay of the lead. Let's see if it was a WSR. You know what? I'm not going to make it, so let's see if you can make it.
Indeed, I suppose a little bit of teamwork there, possibly just trying to push forward to James Boomy, who's been brilliant so far in this race. As here we do see Arthur Thurtle looking to make a move, looking to go to the inside. Porsche versus Mercedes. Two, in my opinion, very difficult cars to drive. Both got quite light rear ends and very easy to sometimes get on that throttle a little bit too early as they make their way into Dunlop. Still, Mercedes ahead of that Porsche. And then, of course, you've got turns 11 through towards 16 here at this point, where making overtakes are difficult, but sometimes if you can, even if you're a tenth back, you can sometimes go for a bit of a silly lunge, and a lot of the time the car ahead will end up drifting wide naturally, because it's like, oh no, there's a car there, so they drift wide, and then of course you then put yourself alongside. So it's a risky section, but sometimes if you can get it perfect and the racecraft from the driver ahead or behind is perfect, it's such a good place to make moves.
And that Mercedes is a 908 of Tom Griggs. Back to the inverted field, it reminded me when I was interning as a young broadcaster. Oh, this had been back in 2009. I was helping out with the then Speed World Challenge broadcast team. Got a little bit of a juke there to the inside battle for position as Archer trying to hold off the Mustang. That is, do believe that's going to be Muska right there in 16th and 17th. So the 555 able to hold off the 71. Those are both Pro-Am cars. But back to my point, I can remember the top 6 would come to the series trailer and call heads or tails on whether or not they were inverting the top 6. So that made things interesting as well.
Yeah, certainly. And I think if we do get like a 25 place reverse grid, which we can do, obviously James Boomy will be starting 25th. I mean, it's easy to say, oh, he's got the pace, he'll make his way up nice and quickly. I mean, he's got to make the moves. Being behind someone and being quicker is one thing, but then being able to make that move, picking the right spot to go ahead, is another thing. So that's where we do get to see that test of some of our top drivers, not just with their speed, but with their racecraft. And then if we do get a full reverse grid, that's when you can't really call anything, because you genuinely do not know what's going to happen. As just ahead there, I think it was a car in 15th place, that being William Guthrie, going a little bit wide and potentially losing time to P16 and 17 behind Archer and Muxka.
Let's see what happens here if Muxka gets another good draft in that Mirimika MA70 Esports Mustang down the long front straightaway here at Fuji, as drivers are heading into the pits. Interesting to note, too, that what is that? That's Petrick that was kind of bobbing and weaving there, as this Guthrie that was bobbing and weaving. So this Archer Muska battle for that bottom step of the Pro-Am podium. Down around turn number 2 and heading into Coca-Cola corner. Not as close as they were the past couple of laps, but that's the name of the game. It seems like some of these drivers feel they've got to take moves out of desperation early on, or else they're not going to be able to make those moves a lap or two later.
Yeah, it becomes difficult, especially when some of these drivers get into a rhythm. At first, you see drivers, you know, they have a bit of a cold start where they kind of have to get into things, build up the pace, and then when they get to a consistent point, it's so difficult to make those overtakes. So you've got to make them early, as we do see a couple of cars ahead there, that being 22nd and 21st. That'll be Macaulay and Simnor having a battle, Am versus Pro-Am here, as we make our way through. And that could be a perfect move here for the Mustang of Simnor, looking to try and get ahead outside in towards Dunlop Corner as they make their way through in towards turn 11. No move to be made that time around, as Macaulay does go a bit deep over the curbs and now does bring Sikorsky into the battle.
This is such a great battle here for positions. Now we got the McLaren going to the inside. Oh, that was a nice little sweep coming off of 13 now into 14. The McLaren loses it. Sikorsky gets that in the number 21. Wow, this is just great stuff here. Coming down the straightaway for 23rd, 24th, and 22nd is now, it looks like pit stop still commencing.
Yeah,
Macaulay looks like he's the driver into the pits.
Yeah, into the pits nice and early.
Yeah, nice and early. So Macaulay's out of the game. We have, let's say, this game that we're watching right now, as Simnor, Sikorsky, and Loins all involved in a battle here. Aiden Carter, your driver in the number 42. As again, Carter, your AM champion, moving up to Pro-Am. We did see Watson also move up to the Pro class this year, so a couple of moves up. Some of the drivers in those previous classes, they're not too worried now because they have a little bit clearer path to the title, but it's still a long way to even think about a championship. You just want to make sure that you stay on the front end of the grid throughout the rest of the season, for the early part of the season, I should say.
Yeah, certainly. And also I've noticed, I think Aiden's the only one, or maybe one of two or three, that are in the Lamborghini. And if that's down to possibly the fact the car isn't as good, and it hasn't got as much pace, that could certainly harm Aiden over the course of the season. But also, sometimes it is better for a driver to drive a car that they're more comfortable with. So I'm sure we'll see over the season how that Lamborghini does, and compared to the likes of the Mustangs or the McLarens, Mercedes, the more common cars, we'll see how it goes compared to those in his categories. We head our way back down towards turn number 1, and of course Carter looking to make a move on Grabowski, but of course also has Ben Altria behind, and that's a Pro-Am and an Am all having a battle. That's for 18th, 19th and 20th as we head down to turn 1, and I believe Thurtle and Archer have both been into the pits as well in this race.
Yeah, Thurtle Archer into the pits, so we're going to see some cycling all throughout. As there's Ertl in the 70 coming into pit side. And here's what's interesting too, we've seen Fletcher in the pits for about the past couple of laps. Not sure if that's from that damage that he ensued, but nonetheless, we do see that Archer out, Thurtle is out, 11.3, 11.6 out of their pit times. As there's Paul Smith, first time we get to see him in anger on his driver cam. Look at the back. He's got one of the Williams Lego sets. You know, I keep telling my wife I want to get one of those. I got to figure out how to really coax her into that now, because I mean, all I've got here for my in-car cam is Champ Cars.
I mean, I've got I have got one, but it's like a Funko Pop Sergio Perez car, so it's, you know, it's not kind of what most people would be buying anyway. No, I do need to get some more of them Lego cars. There's so many of them being brought out recently, but they're too much money. They're like 30 or 40 pound a car, so I need to start investing into Lego, because they are great little minifigures and little sculptures to have for yourself. And I think as well there's a few of our GT3 cars which have Lego versions. I'm sure there's an Aston Martin one, and unfortunately we have no Aston Martins on the grid this evening, which is a shame, because I do really love the Aston Martin GT3. In my opinion, it's one of the best, if not the best, sounding GT3.
It's a good one, and it's really the only Lego I want is the MP44, because that's about as close to a diecast as I'll ever get. Tom Griggs is into the pits before his pit stop comes down to a stop, and I think Fletcher's done for the races. He's got he's in the pits for 4 minutes, so we'll see if he gets out here with just under 18 minutes left to go. That promotes Matthias Pirinen into 10th spot. Michael Gray is still your only non-pro driver in the top 10, so Gray, he's got a big buffer between he and William Guthrie. Next driver in Pro-Ams in 13th course. Guthrie about 2.6 seconds ahead of Muska as well.
Yeah, indeed. I think, our top 10 there quite content on where they are. You can see none of them are fighting that much, even though they probably could get into battles, but it's about just keeping consistent and keeping your position for now. Give it 10 minutes when we start to get then to the last 3 or 4 laps. We could see them looking to pose more of a challenge and look to make some moves. But for now, it's easier just to sit where you are, just follow the car in front of you, and then, of course, see what happens later on. Of course, we got Pahonen and Rua together. We're very close, I should say. And then, of course, ahead, I believe we did have Michael Gray and Harrison Crowther quite close to each other, but that gap seems to have increased as we head back down towards turn 1 once more. And, of course, like I said earlier on, this part of the track, you've got a good chance to bring up that gap and close down with slipstream, and then because of how wide the corner is on entry, you can sometimes go for a lunge a little bit further back if you need to. So that's something that the drivers can keep in mind heading on to the final couple of laps when those positions really do matter. And another thing to quickly mention as well, Jeremy, is that everybody, 1st to 60th, which is the maximum driver grid, they all take points home. So everybody is going to get points. So if you're having a bad race, it doesn't mean pit and retire. You're still going to get something if you get to the end.
Well, even if you're having a bad race, I would imagine taking, if you're not taking points, I would still imagine getting out there, getting the, getting the experience, getting the laps, and it's like a test session. So that's always fun to have, as we're seeing Pirinen widen the gap just a little between he and Rauer as they are all going through Dunlop corner once again. Such a tight complex, and I know that I've had a chance to go through some of the Discord channels here on the World Sim Racing Discord, and it's interesting how a lot of drivers are against that 10, 11, 12, not just here, but in other series that we cover down the road, because it's just so tight and they see it as a lap killer.
Yeah, certainly. It's a horrible track, this is, in terms of it's so difficult to drive, in terms of, well, I wouldn't say it's difficult to drive, but it's difficult to be good at. I think it's quite an easy track to make your way around, but if you want to be quick, you've got to brake so late, you've got to turn in at specific moments, as we do see our top guy starting to head into the pits. Ross McFarlane was, I think, P3 in this stint, now goes into the pit lane and will go in for some fuel, I believe, or has been in for some fuel, I should say. And then, of course, James Boomy, Alexander Davidson will all follow suit soon. So this pit stop strategy, you've also got to get that right as well, because if you make a slight mistake and lose half a second, that could be a position for some of these near the top.
McFarlane, Crowther, Muska, Carter, Simnor, and Loins all in the pit. So it's only a matter of time before Boomy, Davidson, Jaffa, and Meyer all come in as well. Here's Alistair Kirk. We're going to talk much about him in that 907. Of course, holding off number 31st of Andy Archer in the 55. Well, now they all get promoted up because of all the drivers just now coming out of the pit. So what's going to be interesting to see is a lot of these drivers taking 10, 11 second pit stops with the less time. I have a feeling that Boomy and Davidson, they're going to need less fuel, so they're going to need less time in the pits. Just under 14 minutes left. So we'll see when they come in and how they come in, as we're starting to see some drivers dive off into pit road. I believe there is a WSR Mustang, so a lot of other drivers now deciding it's time to pit.
Yep, certainly. I think we expected that. Once a couple go in, they all seem to follow each other and bail into the pit lane. So our top 4 are all in here for their, well, hopefully, only pit stop in this race. If they'll make another one, I don't think they'll be too happy with that, because there'll be no need to. So it will be interesting to see where McFarlane comes out compared to all of these, as the top 9 are all in, the top 10 are all into the pit lane. So I think this is kind of the final pit lap for most drivers to get in. and get back out. So it will be interesting to see where McFarlane is. And of course, is this an opportunity for him to take that lead and have a bit of an advantage over James Boomy, who's just been, I wouldn't say he's been insanely quick this race, but he's just been so consistent. Nobody's been close to him. I think that gap has consistently been over 2 seconds.
Well, and that's the thing, too. It's constantly been over 2 seconds. And is it a matter of, race off pit road as we're watching the battle for third between Davidson, McFarlane, Meyer. McFarlane falls off 2 spots. But nonetheless, Meyer in the middle of a WSR sandwich, working their way through Coca-Cola corner, setting up for 100R as everybody kind of jostled for position. The good news here is didn't take fresh tires, so you don't have to worry about tires 3 wide. A little bit of bumping and rubbing between 3 different Mustangs as McFarlane goes from 5th to 3rd in just a couple of corners. Davison and Meyer, though, they're still battling to see who's going to be in that 4th spot by the end of this lap. Right now, Meyer has that nose out front, but Davidson falling back just a little bit. Interesting battle here, and Davidson has that outside unpreferred line, so he's just going to tuck right back in.
I mean, I noticed a little bit of teamwork there. When Ross went 3 wide and made the move, Davidson kind of tried to slow down Meyer so that Ross could get the move done and jump up into P3. And now, of course, Davidson has to get past Meyer himself and try and get back up into P4. But nice work there between McFarlane and Davidson to now sit P3 and P5. Of course, our top 2 is still what it was since lap 1. It's Boomy ahead of Joff, and that gap now at the front is 4 seconds between Boomy and Joff. So a great pit stop and outlap, I presume, there for James. And I mean, at the moment, he's kind of unstoppable. I don't think anybody's got a chance of catching up to him in this race. And then McFarlane's another 2.5 seconds back from Marley Joff, as we do see Kevin Simpson into the pits. Of course, was P8, but of course will drop down to whereabouts he was earlier on because he did leave it a lot later than everybody else.
And here's what's interesting. I'm looking at the different pit times. So 10-second pit time for Boomy, 9.2 for Joff. But you take a look at their last lap, their pit lane times, 39.9 out of Boomy, 39.7 as Crowther trying to go to the inside there. Not going to make it happen so far. But here's what's telling, too. The outlaps. 14.7 out of Boomy, 14.4 out of Joff, and still a 4-second lead separates the 2 of them.
Indeed. Great work by those guys. Of course, their pace is just insane. Really, really good so far. As we do see here, Harrison Crowther looking to make a move ahead of Jack Osborne, as that's a late move to the inside from the Mercedes ahead. That could have ended in contact, and Crowther now has to try and get that move done as they head their way through turns 8 and 9 in towards Dunlop. And the way these 2 have been battling in the previous corner, and sure, we could try and see a lunge into turn 10. No, not this time around, as they all make it through, but that could have ended in contacts, and that's something that these drivers have to be wary of. We're going to see multiple times in this race and around this circuit drivers moving straight to the inside, braking that little bit earlier, and of course trying to catch other drivers off guard and making them go deep or making them brake too much into a corner.
You don't want to make those moves, and we're just under that 10-minute mark, so about 3 to 4 laps left to go in this race as the cars making their way around. Got some areas where it's just a little dark, but then again, that's just cloud cover. No big worry here so far. Boomy still 3.8 seconds ahead of Joff, and of course got a battle for 3rd place between McFarlane and Meyer. We've been watching back there. Ooh, a little pop out by one of the Mercedes. They're going to go side by side. That is Muska. It's that Muska battle we've been watching throughout the whole race, as it's Muska and Archer. Archer in the 555. That's a Pro-Am battle. Oh, got one on the wall. One hard on the wall. I believe that's going to be Archer, Muska and Archer. Is that both of them? That's just one of them, at least. And what a turn of events there for Pro-Am, as Archer and Muska involved in contact coming off of turn number 2.
I mean, that is heavy contact. Let's see what happens here. So through turns 1 and 2, they go in towards Coca-Cola corner. Ooh, and I think that green Mercedes of Muska does move over a little bit to the right and to the left, sorry, and does force the other car into the barrier. What a shame that was there for the Mustang, and that is not really the way you want to be ending your race with only 8 minutes to go here.
Well, and I could give the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, the Mercedes touched the grass, but that juke to the left was way too far away for really anything to happen. So one could wonder, the way that was, could that have been technical difficulties?
I mean, it could have been, but it also just could have been a bit of clumsiness from the car ahead, and unfortunately it's ended in a bit of contact. I'm sure there will be stewards' inquiries going the way of those two as we head back down to turn 1. Here is Johan Ruhr in P7, of course, has Martin Toth ahead. Oh, a bit of lag there from Toth, and then of course behind is Matthias Perhonen as they head their way through in towards turn number 3 at Coca-Cola corner. And Ruhr looks like he wants to get that move done, has a lot of pace over Martin Toth, it seems, but of course has to be careful of Perhonen behind. And then of course, if they battle too hard, they're going to allow Michael Gray to enter back into the scene. So they've got to get these moves done nice and quickly if they want to get them done safely, as Toth doing a great job in P6 at the moment. I'm sure made quite a few positions from the start, but of course now under a lot of pressure.
We saw that Toth going into turn 1 kind of took a defensive line to kind of ward off any Royer appearing in battles there, but still single file coming off of Dunlop, setting up for 13-14 and into Net's corner. Going to be interesting to see what the 3 Mustangs can do here in the next couple of laps, as this is a great 3-car battle for position. It's just off of the top 5, but all 3 of the drivers here in the pro category. Real quick, your pro leader is James Boomey in the 28. Pro-Am sits 9th. That's Michael Gray. Great race from him in the 273. Then you got to go all the way back to Ben Altria, who is in 18th spot in the 504. Battle for a 3rd heating up, and we're watching, see if Toth's going to cover the inside once again. As your bottom part of your screen, that's Meyer and McFarland for that 3rd spot. That's to see who's going to be on the bottom step of the podium. McFarland has the advantage going out of Coca-Cola corner, gonna run off just a little bit wide and take that advantage. So far gonna keep it through 100R and into the hairpin, but things are closing up between Toth and Ruhr, heading into that same stretch as well. So 2 great battles in the top 10 as we round out race number 1 here with just about 5 minutes left to go.
Ooh, that's a spin. That'll be Martin Toth, I think, losing it all on his own, and unfortunately going to have to, well, get the car turned around without having someone hit him in the process. He does make it back onto track and back into a forward-facing position, but unfortunately drops down now, I believe, to around P14 here for Martin Toth. What a shame, of course. Started 8th position, a spin on his own, and unfortunately drops down to P14. But of course, we've got our reverse grid. He can still fight back once we head into race 2. But what a shame there for Martin Toth. And also a great move as well from Ross McFarlane, who did get back up into P3.
It seems like this area we have seen just a lot of spins with whether it's on the X, but this is one of the rare ones. You see it there on the middle of the apex. Here comes McFarlane, though, side by side with Meyer trying to hold him off. Meyer so far has it into turn 1, but does he keep it? Yes, he does for the time being. So move Meyer into that 3rd spot as McFarlane and Davidson now have to go to work with about 4 minutes left to go on the number 20. Meyer with the tight advantage through Coca-Cola corner, still side by side, but McFarlane has the edge through 100R. He has an inside line. Meyer trying to hold off Davidson, because once Davidson gets around, it's going to be game over, but still in the top 5. Oh, a little bit wide by Davidson. Meyer still trying to go around the inside of McFarlane. They're side by side coming off of the hairpin. They'll set themselves up for 300R. No touching out of the 2 of them, but darn it, they were really close. You've got 2 WSR Mustangs trying to get by the 20 of Meyer. Nice inside move through Dunlop. That's 1. Not going to be 2, because Meyer's going to make life difficult for Davidson. Almost shoves him wide. Little bit of a jump off the sausage curves, as now Meyer still sits in 4th place. He wants McFarlane, but Davidson's not making life easy for him.
He certainly is not, and we'll go another time around here only a couple of laps to go in this race, and this is a battle for 3rd, 4th and 5th. Davidson up the inside into the final corner on this circuit, into Panasonic corner, and gets 4th place under his belt. But of course, it's going to be a send back down to turn 1. Meyer is going to try and pull alongside McFarlane, giving that slipstream here too. Alexander Davidson as we head our way back down to the first corner, and Meyer's got the inside line. He's looking to try and just edge ahead after a perfect exit out of the final corner. Let's see, is it enough to get the move into turn 1?
And what time? I'm estimating about 2 laps to go here as Davidson has the outside line, but still Meyer has the advantage coming off of turn number 2. They're side by side, and that's going to give McFarlane a chance to walk away just a little bit as Davidson now shuts the door on him through Coca-Cola corner. They set themselves up for 100R. Meyer's going to try and go high, wide, and handsome. Thinks better of it as there's only one really true line through that 100R. Let's see what he does through the hairpin as nice little defense by Davidson to kind of shut off that one opportunity to dive to the inside on the hairpin. But now he's got to try and keep him behind him through 300R, because we have seen what has happened when you don't get anybody, keep anybody behind you through 300R. And yeah, it's now single file for all 3 Mustangs.
Certainly, and great teamwork there by the WSR esports cars up into 3rd and 4th, and Anders Meyer certainly going to be feeling quite hard done by there, because it should have been a P3 for him, but of course when you're fighting against 2 it does make it a lot more difficult, but at least it's still a top 5 for the number 20 Mustang. And then of course up at the front, still just dominance from James Boomey, 4.7 seconds now ahead of Marley Joff, and then Marley Joff is still over 4 seconds ahead of Ross McFarlane. So brilliant work by our top 2 as we head back in towards Dunlop. A few more cars further back looking to make some moves, as this is going to be Mendonca, Simnor, McCauley and Sikorsky, 23rd down to 26th, and we have a Pro, a Pro-Am and 2 Ams in this battle.
Yeah, and if you're McCauley and Sikorsky, you know, you're thinking, hey, all right, I can hang with the pros and the Pro-Ams. As now Mendonca falling back at least 1 spot, and he better keep it going, because he might fall back 2 spots with McCauley knocking on that back door as well. Sikorsky, who is one of our in-car drivers, also sitting right there really close, and McCauley is right there into that draft for the 24 spot. And again, this is just for overall position, not necessarily class position. Coming down the straightaway into turn number 1, does anybody blink first? It's going to be Simnor who decides he's going to try an inside defense. Mendonca decides he's going to try and go to the inside. He might lose a spot to McCauley, as McCauley's going to try the outside line. So far, so good, as Mendonca has the advantage coming off of turn 1 into 2.
Indeed, and then
go ahead.
I was going to say, yeah, well, we do get that checkered flag. Sorry there, Jeremy, for cutting you off. I was going to say for a moment, Franek Sikorsky was alongside McCauley, but just couldn't quite get the move done. But it is the final lap of the race, so I'll let you take the checkered flag.
I got to say this, Boomey has had nothing but dominance all race long. He took the pole and then he took the lead and has not looked back. Checkered flag is out. The Altitude Freem Esports driver wins race number 1 for the pros as he comes across the line and takes that first checkered flag of the season, first checkered flag of the day, and you can see the celebration that he has as well. Michael Gray, what is there left to say? He's the only Pro-Am in the top 10, and he's really shown that it's going to be his championship to lose so far if he's going to be this dominant. Little wiggles out of the Mercedes driver. He's going to win in Pro-Am, and Ben Altria just on the bottom part of the top 20, but the Mustang looking really good. It's been great all race long for the Full Tilt V Motorsport Mustang. Down to the line, checker flag is out. Have a battle for position here as well down the front straightaway, so still a lot to play for in spite of very little time left. You still want to get out there as 28th and 29th coming side by side down the straightaway. It's Roberts and Simpson, and across the line it's going to be, looks like Roberts by 0.07 seconds.
Indeed, and what an ending we have here in this race. Still a few more cars to cross line and complete this first race of the evening, but of course brilliant start for Boomey in the Pro class, winning by 4 seconds. And then, of course, Michael Gray, who was ahead of That would have been William Guthrie by 4 seconds there. Great from him. And then, of course, in the AM category, it was Ben Altria who took the win. That would have been ahead of Dan McCauley and nearly 10 seconds ahead. So, from all of our 3 classes, it was just dominance, it seems, from our winner.
And Hedgecock having some problems coming off of Panasonic corner, crawling down the straightaway. He will be the last car on the lead lap if he can come across the line. Of course, Hedgecock, one of those drivers who's having difficulties early on in the race. So with that in mind, let's go through the reverse grid spinning wheel. Of course, you see all the numbers. What will it be? Drum roll, please. Oh, it's gonna be a full reverse grid. So here are your results. James Boomey, your winner. Of course, he'll be tail end Charlie, which will make life so interesting. Farley Joff, Ross McFarlane round out your podium. Then it's Alexander Davidson, Anders Meyer, Johan Rauer, Matthias Pirinen, and your Pro-Am winner, Michael Gray. Then you got Tom Griggs, Michael, Ev Daka. Nathan, let's take a look at the 11th through 20th.
Indeed, we have Joey Petrick in P11 ahead of William Guthrie, second in the Pro-Am category, ahead of Arthur Thurtle and Martin Toth. Of course, Toth suffering an incident on the final couple of laps. Down to P14 ahead of Alistair Kirk in the 907, who rounds off the podium for the Pro-Am category. Then we have Harrison Crowther and Jack Osborne. Ben Altria, our winner for the AM category in the 504. And then we have Aidan Carter and Dennis Grabowski rounding off the top 20.
In 21st, it's Adam Tompkins, followed by Andy Archer, Dickie Simnor, and David Mendonca is able to keep Daniel McCauley behind him. Frank Sikorsky, Brian Loans, I should say, Elliot Roberts, Kevin Simpson, and John Williams round out your top 30.
Indeed, and then we have Taylor Lane in 31st, ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins, Chris Chatterton, the top 33, Benjamin Gregory, and Jacques Eva. Then we have Bennyworth in 36th, ahead of Jonathan Walker and Tom Griffiths, and then Paul Smith and Joe Coffin rounding off the top 40.
And of course, I'll grab the rest of the field. Tommy Vidal, Oriole Duran, Howard Hassan, 43rd. 44th, Phil Samways, and Watson. Adam Hedgecock able to get down to the stripe to be the last car in the lead lap. They have Eric Muska, Hakon Aidi Lindmo, John Roberts, Colin Sampson, and 51st was Drew Fletcher, 14 laps down. We didn't get a chance to see Fletcher come out after that, and it was an interesting race. But now, Nathan, that we know that it's a reverse grid, that's going to be a lot of fun.
It will be, especially when we've got someone who was, I believe, out of the race, Drew Fletcher, starting from first, who was 14 laps down. And that's if he's continuing to take part. I mean, he would have retired on quite early. We have Colin Sampson, John Roberts, who are also up at the top end of things for our second race shortly. But then James Boomey starts 51st. If he wants to try and go back-to-back, he's got to make 50 places over the next 45 minutes. I'm not going to say it's impossible, but I don't think it's going to actually happen. But we'll have to wait and see what happens as this race gets underway. But I think now, for the likes of Boomey, Joff, McFarlane, Davidson, who were, some of our quicker drivers, when they're making their way through the field of slower drivers, they've got to be careful because some of those are going to be braking a lot earlier. They might not be taking as much speed through the corners and going into the pit lane. They might also be braking that slight bit early. So they've now got to adjust to driving in against drivers which aren't normally as quick as they are. So this could pose a challenge for some of those at the top end of the field.
It's not the first half of the lap that I'm worried about. It's the second half with as technical as it is. And I think that the mayhem that we saw in this first race is going to double, maybe even triple, especially early on, because you may have some drivers who aren't used to that many fast drivers being behind them.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it's also an opportunity. If you're one of those that are a little bit further down the grid to maybe making a mistake in qualifying or not just getting hooked up in that first race, if you know you've got the pace, you've got an opportunity here to prove it. Keeping some of those pros or some of the pro-ams behind, you can say, well, actually, no, I have got the pace. I just need that kind of perfect qualifying and perfect first race to be able to do so. So there's also a big opportunity, but of course, along with that comes a lot of pressure. So I think this final race of the evening is going to be great. And I think it's also a great test for our first round of the championship, where we can really see what things are like in mixed up and different circumstances. I mean, I don't think we'll often see a full reverse grid because there's only 2 options on the wheel, but the fact we get it on the first race is, I suppose, good and also bad because we don't know what to expect at all here.
Well, it's great for us because it's going to be a lot of talking, a lot of analysis for us, but for the drivers, I would imagine some of the front runners really not looking forward to that, because now you also have to factor in pit strategy as well. A lot of the drivers did a later pit stop. Do you sacrifice, go in early, or do you continue, make up as many positions as you can, but go late and kind of sacrifice that track position later?
I mean, it's a difficult one, and you don't want to end up like Adam Hedgecock, who unfortunately got to the line without any fuel remaining. You don't want to put yourself in that position, so sometimes it might be a little bit better just to go a little safer on fuel. But of course, if you're one of those like Boomy and Joff who need to make places, if they're stuck behind cars, they can also save fuel that way. So possibly they could risk now going a little bit longer because they can save their fuel. They can just sit behind cars, do a little bit more lifting and coasting, because that's what they'll have to do against some of the slower drivers. So I suppose that does give them that chance to maybe pit a little bit later than they have done in this race. But of course, I think Fuji is kind of a perfect way to start off things, because you have such a mix of high-speed corners, long straights, shorter straights, slow-speed corners and mid-speed corners. And then, of course, we've got another, 11 tracks that we head to, which are also interesting. I mean, we've got the likes of Silverstone, Spa, Le Mans, Indianapolis, Daytona, some of the most famous tracks that we have in the world, also featuring this season. So having a track like this where you've got all of those elements into one, it's kind of a perfect starting point to pick things out.
All right, we're going to take a quick break as we get ready for race number 2. We'll rack 'em, stack 'em, get ready for the reverse grid. Again, it's a 45-minute race. What mayhem will ensue? We'll be back in just a little bit. You're watching RaceSpotTV.
All of them as well. What a move for the 48. Oh, look at this. And onto the straight they come.
Brilliant move there from number 40 to make it through. That left-hander sliding up the inside, going up now over Hawthorne Hill, down Pilgrim's Drop, and it's brilliant stuff here at Brands Hatch.
Just getting set for race number 2 here at Fuji International Raceway. I'm Jeremy Scott, Nathan Richards. Joining me alongside, we just got done with race number 1, and we got the biggest surprise ever, Nathan. After the first race, the grid for race 2 is completely inverted from back to front.
Indeed. I was kind of hoping for that once I saw that we'd have a full reverse grid on the wheel, and we got it. Perfect way to start off this season. And of course, we got the likes of James Bomey, Marley Jar, Frost McFarlane, who were ecstatic in that first race. They're now starting right at the back of the field, so they've got to push through as early as they can, and they've just got to get past some of the Pro-Ams, and then of course, then it will be the AM drivers. That's going to be their biggest challenge, because I'm not saying that the AMs are slow, because they are not, but these guys who are at the top are extremely quick. So that's where we're going to see some challenges, but also for the AMs and Pros that can stick their ground, that can say, no, I can keep this position. They've got such an opportunity to prove their worth here. So it's going to be a great race no matter what. I think it's going to be more chaotic than race 1, just because of the mix-up we have. But we're all here for it. It's first race of the championship. There's nothing really on the line at the moment. There's no championships on the line. So if this was in the last round, I'd be a little bit more worried, I think.
Well, we got a little bit of time here. Let's talk to a good friend of ours at RaceSpotTV. Want to welcome in the one, the only Paul Smith. Hey, buddy, how you doing?
Good evening, everyone. Yeah, I'm not doing too bad, thanks. How about yourselves?
Well, I've got to say this. You and I have done some rallycross, so let's talk about your experience with rallycross here at Fuji.
Yeah. I'll tell you now, this BMW, guy, it's awful. Absolutely awful. It really is. I've just got all of the understeer. And that's just when I'm on my own. When I'm behind cars, the aero wash is absolutely incredible. Just coming around the long sweeping right-hander turns 4 and 5. Just no grip at all if you're following somebody. It's absolutely incredible.
And that's something we're noticing too. And one thing that's kind of surprising me, and I'll hand it off to Nathan here, especially in turn 6 and 7, we see a lot of drivers kind of lose it there in turn 7. So is it just a case of it's squirrely through 4 and 5 and you got to try and quickly gather back up for the hairpin?
I mean, I think that some of the more nimble mid-engine cars, I think they getting the power down can maybe have that little bit of an issue. My BMW is that much of a boat that really it understeers that much coming out of the corner that I don't really notice any oversteer. Yeah, it's the conditions out there. I mean, everybody knows Japanese asphalt, it's always a low grip surface anyway, so drivers have got that challenge to contend with. Potentially, I don't know if it's going to definitely happen, but potentially there is the chance of a light sprinkling of rain in this race as well, which could really throw a cat amongst the pigeons.
Indeed, and I think obviously you're going to be starting in the top 15, I think 14th if I worked out correctly. What are you kind of hoping for starting near the front end of things here, and of course having some of the drivers which are typically going to be faster on paper coming up behind you?
Hope that there's carnage behind me and I have a nice big gap to be able to not worry about them. Nothing ever goes wrong at turn 1 at Fuji, does it? Oh, wait. Yeah. It's been so long since I've raced in this series. I last raced in the series, I believe it was season 5. And it's now season 18. I've commentated on 10 seasons of this championship. So it's more of a case of try to dust off the cobwebs, get the ring rust off, and just try and get going and be semi-competent. I achieved my goals in the first race. The first race, I just said I wanted to 1, survive, and 2, not get lapped. I achieved both of those goals. So this race, I think there'll be a lot of looking in my mirrors. One for me.
It's going to be an interesting one, I think, for anybody, no matter who you are. But Paul, we do wish you the best of luck in the second race, and hopefully we can call you across the line in the top 15 where you started. If not, it doesn't matter. On to the next round after on. But Paul, we wish you luck, and hopefully we'll speak to you later on.
Take it easy, guys.
Hey, good luck, Paul. Thanks for joining us as well, as we're just about set to grid up for race number 2. So something that we were watching, one of the storylines is the promotion of the AM and the Pro-Am champions. Now, looking over my notes right here, Adam Watson, 45th overall. Fine, that happens. You know, as your defending Pro-Am champion moves his way up to the pro ranks, but Aiden Carter, just outside, just on the north end of the top 20, 5th in Pro-Am, so a fantastic debut for the promotion for the defending AM champion.
Yeah, and I mean, was dominant in that season, in season 17, was brilliant. I think got podiums in most of the races and, you know, was flying. And being able to then jump into the Pro-Am category and then get into the top 5 and still be competitive shows that, realistically, in the top end of the AMs and the Pro-Ams, there's not actually that much difference. You know, they can all fight with each other. It's just about that consistency and, of course, possibly who's got the higher I rating or, you know, more experience. So it's great to see Aiden Carter jump up into the Pro-Ams and still say, well, actually, even though I was an AM last season, I can still fight in the Pro-Ams. And I'm sure the same goes for those in the Pro-Ams that are looking to move up into the Pros for this season as well. So it's great to see that even though you're moving up, it's not like you're going up there and then you're going straight back down. You actually can compete up there.
And of course, also it has to do with car familiarity, which you talked about also during the we had Aiden Carter on camera. It's you got to be familiar with what you're driving. You can't necessarily go from a Lamborghini to a BMW because, as we heard from Paul, it's a handful to drive. And if you're promoted up and you don't do well, guess what? You know, you might be looking at another demotion.
Yep, certainly. And I think, you know, like Paul said as well, with this track being quite a difficult one, very low grip, it's going to make it so hard for everybody. So I suppose sometimes that excuse of low grip can't be used as much because everybody suffers from it. But of course, like Paul said, that BMW, not the best car to drive, hence why there's not many of them out on circuit this evening. We've seen mainly Mustangs and the Mercedes, a couple of McLarens, Porsche as well on track. But of course, Mercedes and the Mustang seem to be the most popular among all. But of course, heading into this second race as well, we have been told a better chance of rain possibly. That would spice things up. And then, of course, that's where strategy comes up into things, because there's a lot of times drivers see a spot of rain, straight into pits for wet tyres. Others sometimes edge it out, go a little bit too long, and then they can't drive on the slick. So they've got to be very careful with strategy so they don't go too early or too late, because sometimes it can really ruin a race, a little bit of rain can.
Well, you know, it wouldn't be Fuji without just a little bit of rain. Hopefully we won't get a deluge like we see in some of the other races. We're going to take a quick break. We're on RaceSpotTV. Coming up next, we'll be gridding up for race number 2. It's a full inversion. Who will be up at the front at the end? We'll find out here in just a little bit. Oh my, the conditions have changed for race number 2. Welcome back, Jeremy Scott and Nathan Richards with flag-to-flag coverage of race number 2, 45 minutes around Fuji Speedway for World Sim Racing season number 18. We saw some interesting battles there, but now with a full inversion, Nathan, I think those interesting battles are going to be kicked up to 11.
Yeah, certainly. And like you said, we are seeing the track a lot darker than it has been, and we did get told there's a possibility of rain featuring later on, and well, with how dark the track is at the moment, there certainly is that possibility, which could throw even more into the pan for this final race of the evening. I mean, we've obviously had 17 other season openers of this championship, and I think this one is starting to heat up to possibly be one of the best, because we have got a race too where we don't really have a clue what's happening. Normally we enter into a race, and as broadcasters we have a few things in the back of our mind of what we expect, but here, Jeremy, we have no clue.
Mayhem, lunacy is going to ensue as you see 2 AM drivers up at the front, Colin Sansom and John Roberts. Then it's Hakon AD, Linmo and Eric Muxka, Adam Hedgecock and Adam Watson are in row 3. Then you go back to row 4. It's Phil Samways and Howard Hassan. Row 5 is Tommy Vidal, Joe Coffin and Nathan, Paul Smith and Tom Griffiths make row 6.
Indeed, and then we have Jonathan Walker and Ben Bennyworth in the top 14 ahead of Jacques Eva and Benjamin Gregory. Chris Chatterton in 17th ahead of Jesse Payne Wilkins. And then we have Taylor Lane and John Williams rounding off our top 20.
If you take a look at row 11, it's Kevin Simpson and Elliot Roberts. Brian Loins also there as well. Daniel McCauley, David Mendonca. Then it's Dicky Simmer and Andy Archer in row 14. Row 15, Adam Tompkins and Dennis Grabowski.
Indeed, and then we have Aidan Carter, who did a great job in the first race. He sits 33rd ahead of Ben Altria, our winner of the AM category. Then we have Jack Osborne and Harrison Crowther, Alistair Kirk, and then Martin Toth, the top 36 ahead of Arthur Hurtle, William Guthrie. Then we have Joey Petrick, and then Michael Evdoka, the top 40.
And rounding out your field, Tom Griggs and Michael Gray, your Pro-Am winner earlier on this evening, with Matthias Pirinen and Johan Rohrer alongside each other in row 22, row 23, Anders Meyer and Alex Davidson. They had a great battle all race long with Ross McFarland. See how that rounds up. Marley Jaffa sits 48th, 49th. James Boomey and Drew Fletcher rounding out your 50 cars. We have lost one, but let's see what happens here the rest of the way. BMW pace car coming down the straightaway, getting all 25 rows onto the track for the final time today, as we'll see that pace car make the hard right in just a little bit. Glad to have you with us here as we get set for race number 2. There it goes into the pits. It's going to be Sansom and Roberts, 1 and 2, full reverse grid. What kind of mayhem and calamity will ensue? We're about to find out. So sit back, strap in, put your feet up, and hopefully you grabbed a good snack or dinners. We are already green. And look at Roberts keeping on the back bumper right there. Timing's not kind of sorting stuff out. 3, 4, sometimes 5 wide, especially there in the back, as Roberts already having to hold off a pack of cars through one.
Oh my, that was literally like 7 wide there heading into the first corner. But the back, that was carnage. They've all made it through though, safe and sound. That's the great thing to say. As we head our way on this first lap, it's still Roberts ahead of Linmo as they head their way through turns 4 and 5. And I think that's Paul Smith off the track, down at the exit of the Coca-Cola corner and down to last on the field. A big shame there for Smith, and as well I think that might have been Aidan Carter off the track as well in that purple Lamborghini. What a shame for those two at the start of this race.
Yeah, Carter's falling back. Sansom's falling back as well. He's all the way back in 50th position. Not sure what happened there, but Linmo is your leader for the time being. Roberts back there. Musk and Watson with a tight battle for third place. That's now got another contact there. It's a 13 of Hedgecock with a spin through Dunlop corner. Oh, so many cars have to slam out the brakes, cause evasive action. 2, 3, 4 cars involved in this incident, and there's more on the exit. We've got a couple of Mustangs that are involved in that as well.
Oh my, there's things happening everywhere you look here on circuit at the moment. As here is Adam Watson in P3, as oh my, behind there's even more contact. 3, 4, 5 cars involved in that one. But of course, back to the leaders, down towards turn 1, a battle for P2, 3 and 4. It's Roberts, Watson and Muxka as we head down to the first braking zone. Oh, a bit of a move to the left-hand side there for Watson. We'll be looking to brake later and get that move done and jump up into P2. And Muxka as well looks to go up the inside, as we did see there John Roberts go a tad wide through into turn 1.
Watson, your Pro-Am champion last year, goes into the Pro class and looking like he wants to get that lead overall, but he is your Pro leader. Still a ways back are some of your other Pro drivers, but with that reverse grid, that helps Watson get out to an early lead. Ross McFarland in 32nd right now, trying to make his way up through the field, and that might be the next closest. Actually, no, it's going to be Harrison Crowther. Oh, we got one car spinning. It's the 28 who is sideways through the exit of Coca-Cola corner. We're on board with Ross McFarland at WSR Esports Mustang. Oh, just so much bumping and banging. There you go. There's another one as he taps Jaffa there, falls back a little bit as Griggs gets ahead of McFarland. I'm seeing lots of jostling here on my timing screen, but so much damaged carbon fiber and everything here in this first lap.
Indeed, as we go in towards Dunlop, and here's Alexander Davidson looking to try and make some moves. Sits P27, sits ahead, I believe, of James Boomey. So a great start for him here as he gets up into 26th now, making another move and dispatching Andy Archer. And then further behind, we've got more contact. Another car off the circuit rejoins and nearly ends up into contact. That could have ended badly, but they've all made it through as we go 2 and 3 wide through into the final sector of the track. And that's Davidson still moving forward.
I thought we do reverse grids every race. This is absolutely fantastic, as we've been seeing the first 2 laps not short of any sort of amusement here, dare I say, to go off. But nonetheless, what a fantastic start. But Lindmo trying to hold off Watson for the overall lead. You've got cars 2, 3 wide going into turn number 1. Lots of defensive. You've got fast cars trying to go around some slower cars and making their way around. Jesse Payne Wilkins moving up into 9th place overall. That's 4th right now in AM. And look at this single file through Coca-Cola corner. Everybody nice and tight on lap number 3. Ross McFarland trying to move up some spots around Jack Osborne for 31st.
Indeed, and of course, I'm not sure if Roberts has some damage, but that gap is really starting to go up. It's 3 seconds now between Lindmo and Roberts, so this is a good opportunity for the top 3 to start to pull away, as that was contact further behind a replay. That was Paul Smith on the opening lap, got caught up by someone side by side with him and unfortunately ended his race there. Oh, and Hayden Carter lost it all by himself heading through turns 4 and 5, and I think it's like what Paul mentioned earlier on. There's no grip when you head through turns 4 and 5 with the car behind, with the car ahead. Then of course on the first lap with colder tyres, that just didn't end well there for Aidan Carter, as I think there that was Dicky Simnor going off the track.
Yeah, Simnor had a little bit of help there through Dunlop, and thankfully doesn't have anything other than another car, able to get back on in safe fashion. Here's Ross McFarland also involved as he gets some contact. Oh, a little bit of evasive action up. Nope, he does get hit by, yes, it's Simnor, so Simnor walks away with this, sands a bumper cover around Dunlop, and got a good battle for 5th place here with Sam Ways and Robert Evdaka also in 21st position, trying to go for, I believe it's the pass on Meyer. So Meyer holding off Evdaka, and never thought we'd say that at the end of race 1, because Meyer really was up there near the end.
Certainly, and Meyer's now up into 20th, the highest of all those that started up in that the bottom 5 in this one. So a great start from Meyer, making all the moves he needed to in the right spots, as we have another battle here. This is going to be Howard Hassan looking to move on forward, has ahead John Roberts, who of course hasn't really been putting down the pace on these opening few laps, which is a shame for John. Of course, started up near the front and now sits down in P6 and under pressure from Hassan and Joe Coffin as well in 8th place. Started 10th, in this race, and moving up spots for the AM driver. So a great start for him in this one as we make our way through the final few corners on this circuit. And of course, we can see there, because of the contact with McFarlane and I think it was Dickie Simnor, he's unfortunately now down in P40, which is not how he would have been hoping this one would have gone, especially when he's a driver that will be looking to try and hunt down for the championship, I think, this season.
And of course, there's still plenty of time left. We're 38 minutes left to go in this race, so really anything could happen. And it just takes some good pit strategy to get up there near the front. But yeah, when you're this far back, this early on, it's a little defeating to say the least, as Grabowski tries to make a little bit of a pass there on Gregory. That's for the 13th spot. Grabowski to the inside in that number 41 Mustang. Gonna make the pass happen for now, but will there be a switchback? No, because that McLaren got to hold it off back just a little bit. So yeah, move Grabowski up into top the 13th. And we're starting to see some drivers come into the pits as well. So not sure if they're in the fixed damage. We do see that Pirinen and Tompkins, unfortunately, they are in the pits to fix some damage. Vidal's in the pits now. So some of your front runners from race 1 suffering some issues.
Yep, certainly, and that is not what we like to see, as here we do see Daniel McCauley, of course, a very quick driver in the past here, who was up in the top 2 in the AM category last season. He's now having a battle. I think that was with Alexander Davidson. Davidson there does get ahead and jumps up into, I think, P19 now in this one. P18, my bad. And up at the front, it's now Adam Watson who leads after starting P5. In this one is our now leading pro driver, as James Boomey ahead of Danny McCauley as well, up into P21 for him. And then Harrison Crowther as well, up into P10. So many moves being made here. Oh, and I believe this has been the 3rd lap of this race. 36 minutes to go in this one. And already, many of our quicker drivers already up into the top 20.
And Aiden Carter falling further back in the field. Not sure if he's had a problem or if he's just coming into the pits. He's now down to 44th spot. Jacques Ava, one of those drivers who's having some difficulty. He is very slow coming around that 13, 14, 15 complex. We'll see if Ava comes into the pits as they're going around Panasonic corner. Would not be surprised at that. Here's why Ava's. Oh, yep, that's what we're talking about. Talking about that hitting that sausage curb and just nowhere to go and gets turned around.
Yeah, and luckily didn't get collected by anyone, because that is one of the last places realistically you do want to be going round, because cars are flying through there at such a high speed. Bit of a blind one, so they can't, always see a car coming up to them that's stopped. So luckily, no extra contact there for Jacques Ava, as I think it was Evdoka there making a move up into P19, Crowther up into 9th, Coffin up into P7. I think Myers there also making a move. Many moves happening on this lap, and we have a great little battle here. 2-3, could even go possibly 4 wide, and it's Roberts who leads this whole pack down in towards Dunlop corner.
And for the time being is working their way around the tight confines of Dunlop. You're on board right now with Payne Wilkins as they're trying to make their way around this clog so far. You saw that pass for 8th between Crowther and Coffin. Crowther has it for the time being, but everybody's just so close, and you're seeing Crowther trying to get back into that 7th spot now, able to make that happen. It's a spin back there. Somebody makes contact. That's Grabowski who's involved in this. Not sure who that second car was involved. You saw just a little bit how Grabowski was spun, and someone just could not avoid. Not sure who that was just yet.
And that is, that's his card. No rear wing left. Tops the sausage curb as well. What a shame there for Grabowski, and that was just, not ideal, I think is to say the least there. A big shame there for Dennis Grabowski, who's having a decent running in this race. And here is Paul Smith, who loses the rear into turn 11, and ahead there was also a car that lost the rear. Big shame there for Smith, and that was of course a contact, and it was Benny Worth who hits. I think it was Dennis Grabowski there, as we do have Dickie Simnor into the pit lane, our first pit stop of the race. And with it being quite early, I'm not sure if that's actually a full pit stop to go to the end, or if it's for damage here for Dickie Simnor. But here is Phil Samways up into the top 5, doing a nice job in that number 11, up by 2 spots.
I almost feel bad playing all these Paul Smith replays. You go, come on, let's be better than that. Paul's a good guy. He's a friend of ours. But nonetheless, still some great battles. Got to thank Hugo for giving us all these great battles, as there's so much to look at. It's hard to sit and pick where we want to go, as Samway's trying to catch up to Walker. That not only is an overall position battle, but that's the battle for the bottom step of the Pro-Am podium. The Mercedes of Samway's trying to catch up to the Mustang of Jonathan Walker as they come around Dunlop. Ben Pennyworth's in the pits to do some damage repair there. But Adam Watson, he'll have a little bit of an issue here as Eric Muska is closing in for that overall lead. Of course, these two are Watson and Muska really familiar with one another after battling tooth and nail for the Pro-Am title last year.
Indeed, and there we do see Samway's looking to make a move on Walcat, but not quite close enough, as well, actually looks to go up the inside through the exit of turn 1. Is he going to be able to pull alongside? Oh, no, was about to, but I don't think quite could get that one done. But of course, at the front, we do see Watson leading Muxka, and what a race it's been for Muxka, as that's somebody high speed into the barriers. I think that's Jesse Payne Wilkins into the barriers, and I mean, that was some speed heading off the track there out of turn 2. And once again, it's little bits of contact that could just send the car spinning round, and Payne Wilkins off into the barriers. What a poor ending of his race. He was up in the top 10, doing a very decent job indeed.
We've got more calamity. They're coming off of Coca-Cola. Not sure who's involved in that, but a couple cars made contact. We'll see if we can get a replay there. But, man, you got to feel for Jesse Payne Wilkins. That's not a corner that you normally run, have some sort of issue there. As we're just watching replays, here's Phil Samways. Let's see what happens here. A nice little contact there as he was involved in that early top 5 battle. So a couple of cars there involved, and really everything's just happening all at once. Oh, and that was Roberts who was involved in that issue. Or was it? No, he just spins. So that was just a sympathy spin right into the barriers.
Yeah, big shame there for Roberts, who of course didn't start off too good in this race, and well, unfortunately met the barriers. A few laps later, here is Marley Joff, who's made 33 spots in this race. I believe starting 49th on the grid, and now looking to make even more moves as we head back down towards turn number 1. And let's see who's going to make moves here. Further ahead, a couple of cars looking to go forward. We've got a couple of 2 wide here into the first corner. That was close to contact. There was contact. They're all pushing each other through, and 3 cars around.
This is literally a tale of 2 races. First race clean for the most part. This one almost feels more like a demolition derby. And I know that some of the viewers on our YouTube stream said how we know how this is going. So this is actually kind of interesting to see how this is all playing out. Here's a replay from Evdaka's point of view. And yeah, just bump, nowhere to go. And there was one car facing the wrong way. And really, it's kind of hard to go straight when you have one car sideways.
It certainly is not ideal there at all for Evdoka into turn 1, of course. Once they all start to slow down, it's just a Constantina effect through there, and 4 cars in the end made contact, and unfortunately 2 of them were spun round, and that was, well, pretty much their race is over here. But of course, James Booming, 37 spots gained, P12 here, and I said I don't think he'd be getting up near the front end of things, but he's still got 30 minutes to make 11 spots, has made 37 in the past 15. So there's all still possibilities here for some of our drivers, the likes of Meyer and Davidson already up into that top 7. But because of the contact and the carnage earlier on, Watson and Muxka have now got a bit of an advantage. 8 seconds back to P4, and that slipstream helping Muxka keep bong with Adam Watson. And like I was saying earlier, for the likes of Muxka being able to do what he's doing and be up into that top 3, the type of performances which gives them confidence heading into week 2.
Griffiths with a spin right there. Barely makes contact with the barriers, able to get back going. And Watson now has lost the lead as Muxa is your leader so far. Coming around, and man, going to be an interesting battle here to see if Watson can continue on, get back that lead, or if he's just going to pit. Let's watch the replay and see how it happened as Muxka just goes wide. or Watson goes wide, sorry. Watson just goes wide. Was there some sort of quick glitch with the 291? As now Watson having to hold off Ida Lindmo. And if I was Watson, I would probably think about pitting right about now. Oh, we're hearing it's a slowdown penalty. So, yeah, I'd probably still think about pitting right now.
Yeah, that is not ideal at all for Adam Watson. And, well, I said earlier on, was leading the race comfortably. I jinxed it. He's now P2 and under pressure from Lindmo. As we do see there, Boomy ahead of Phil Samways, who was up into the top 5, has made a bit of contact in the last couple of laps, and now jumps outside that top 10. And Harrison Crowther, a driver that we haven't really mentioned that much in this race, has been absolutely flying in that number 30 machine up to P4. Started, I think, down and around P10, P11. Has done a great job here, but of course still has such a gap to P3. It's going to be difficult to bring that one down, as James Boomy now up into that top 10 in that 28 Mustang. And, well, it's all down to see what he can do along with Meyer and Davidson.
All you can do is just laugh and watch, because this is going to be interesting as Davidson goes around Coffin for 7th place. Let's see what Boomy has, as he's got 3 seconds to get up to the 907 of Alistair Kirk. And you take a look at the gap, it's now 16 seconds between Boomy and the lead. I think he might be able to do it. We got, what, 27 and a half minutes? It's going to be interesting. Let's see what lap times Boomy's doing. 39.3. I don't know. We'll see. It's going to take a lot of pit strategy and a lot of great racing here to go with. It seems like things, knock on wood, have calmed down as everybody making their way around 100R, setting up for the hairpin. I should say that's out of the hairpin into 300R. So now we can take a breather after all of that calamity there in the first 15 minutes. Nathan, I've got to say, this is kind of not a surprise to see Boomy work his way up in the top 10 so fast. No,
certainly not. I think we expected him to move up quite quickly, and he's done so. And I don't know what it is, but carnage can happen to everyone. But you look at the top 3 in the top class, they never seem to get into contact. They all make it through somehow cleanly. So a great job by himself and, of course, Myron Davidson, who now are up into the top 6 and top 7. They do have an opportunity this race to possibly jump up onto the podium as things progress on, as we head our way back down towards turn number 1. And, of course, pit stops. That's going to be a key thing in this race, because remember last time it was James Boomy who had a 2-second lead. He pitted and was 4.5 seconds ahead, so you can gain a lot of time if you pit at the right moment and if you get that pit stop perfect. So that's something that Meyer, Davidson and Boomy have to think about if they want to try and get closer to the top 3, because they might be P6 and 7 for Meyer and Davidson, but they still have a 10-second gap to Muxka, whose pace has been absolutely brilliant so far in this race.
And, of course, Watson now close in to 9/10 of a second off Muxka. And, yeah, that's going to be the key. Who blinks first, as we see Meyer go around Hassan, but that's not going to be too much. We got one car off of the hairpin. Not sure who that is, but they're not really falling on our timing screen yet, as now Davidson tries to push Meyer around Hassan, and looks like it might be Colin Sansom. So another driver who we had up near the front just having issues, and yeah, just pulls off with difficulties.
Yeah, big show there for Sansom. Yeah, must have been a technical difficulty there. That's an odd one, isn't it, for Sansom, as we do see Meyer and Davidson now up into the top 5 and 6 ahead of Howard Hassan.
Nice, and they get around Hassan. Now their next target, per se, is Crowther, if they decide to not race each other. Ooh, something going way off. It's one of the Mercedes that had a little bit of an off, goes up the hill. No harm, no foul. And here's how the pass happened on Hassan around Dunlop. One goes and the other sees the opening, says, thank you very much. I'm going to take it.
Indeed, and goes through a nice move there. Oh, and that was close to contact, but of course between our top drivers, they can somehow make minimal to sometimes actually making contact, and they make it through nicely. I don't know how to do it sometimes. I genuinely do not, but they're up into P5 and 6 and closing down on Harrison Crowther. They're only 2 seconds back from Crowther, as here is Marlage off in P12 as they continue their way on, of course, looking to try and jump up into that top 10. And Boomy, I've noticed, has been stuck in that 10th spot for about 3 or 4 laps here. Hasn't moved forward the past couple of minutes as much as I thought he would have done, really. I would have expected him to have dispatched Coffin and Kirk quite easily, but Boomy here seems to have a little bit of a challenge, possibly.
Well, I think Boomy's going to have that challenge. The further up he goes the grid, and he's going to go right to the inside, dive deep into, a little bit of a jump there, and Dunlop, he's going to get the advantage for the time being. He's got his teammate behind him as well in Martin Toth, but Boomy now up to 9th place, so one more spot. His next target is Alistair Kirk, who's about, as we take a look at our timing screen, 2.2 seconds ahead of him. You see him just leaving the screen now, so we'll see what Boomy has for Alistair, about a half second faster than Kirk there in that 8th spot.
Indeed, as we go back down to turn 1, more moves are happening. Let's see who's going to go ahead here. I think someone further ahead was looking to make a move. That's going to be Kirk and Howard Hassan for P7 and 8. Pro-Am versus Am down towards turn number 1. And I think Kirk's going to get that move done. Has the inside line into the first corner and pulls ahead of Howard Hassan. And the next is Boomy, who's dropped back a little bit more, actually. That gap was a lot shorter than it is now. So I think he's possibly run into a little bit of an issue getting past Joe Coffin.
Well, he's gotten around Coffin, that's the good news, but now he sets the sights on Hassan, and Hassan run about a second slower, so unless Boomy pits, it might not be that long until he dispatches of Hassan. Watson falling about 2.7 seconds back to our leader, Muxka, as we're still keeping an eye on that, but we're watching this battle here where Alistair Kirk starting to open up a little bit of a gap. He's still got a ways to go till Alex Davidson, but the question is, how far up can James Boomy get? 22 minutes left. He's already up to that 9th place. And that free Mustang looking oh so racy.
Certainly he's looking to push forward, looking to put the pace down and, well, try and make it 2 out of 2, but it's going to be a challenge, that's for sure, as we make our way through once again. And we're already over, well, nearly halfway through this race. And me and you, Jeremy, said earlier on, after race 1 ended, we thought race 1 went quick. This race is going even quicker. It feels like we haven't been here nearly 2 hours, and we nearly have. It's been a really good evening. Non-stop action here around Fuji. And of course, next time we head off to, I think, whatever name it is. What is it? Shell V Power at the Bend? I can't remember the name because it's that confusing. It's like Imola all over again.
Well, not only is it a newer racetrack to the system, as we see Martin Toth going to the inside of Coffin. They're side by side. Coming out of turn number 1, Coffin loses yet another spot. So Martin Toth in the 105 now moves up to 10th place. So move him in the top 10 for the time being. But back to what I was saying, not only is the Bend a newer track in the system, it's a newer track everywhere. We've seen supercars race there. I think WEC may have raced there once. Either way, it's a newer track for a lot of these drivers, so I'm looking forward to seeing how it races next weekend.
Indeed, and I've got the name right. Shell V Power Motorsport Park at the Bend. There we go. Oh, it's such a handful that one is. But that'll be a good race. You know, it's a newer track. I haven't been able to driven it yet, and I haven't actually seen that much of it. But all I know is it's a really good circuit, so I'm sure these GT3s will rip up the surface down under as we continue our way on here around Fuji. Yet again, another track that I think doesn't get the notice it should, just because it's not on the Formula 1 calendar, and because it's not on the F1 calendar, people seem to ignore it. And in my opinion, it's probably in my top 5 of tracks overall because it is such a brilliant track. It promotes overtaking. Oh, that's not what is good about the track, those sausage curbs.
I think that was Samways who had that little bump there, so that caused Gray and Gregory to close in.
Indeed, not ideal, and as we said before, those sausage curbs are a killer. Now, I don't know if there's any at the Bend, but I'm sure the drivers are hoping there isn't, because they have caused so many fatalities today, haven't they?
They really have. Yeah, a lot of the E-mechanics probably scratching their heads figuring out how the heck they're going to fix it. They've got less than a week to get the cars overseas and get them fixed. They're going to fly him over to Australia, but nonetheless, we see Hassan into the pits. So now we get to play the game of which one of the front runners is going to come in for their pit stop. Ava also into the pits from 23rd, moving down the orders. Aiden Carter moves up. but let's see here now. Because of Hassan going into the pits, Boomy's been promoted to 8th. He's 1.4 seconds back of Alistair Kirk. So Kirk once again has mirrors full of Boomy here shortly.
Certainly, and Ben Altria as well. What a race it's been for him. Started down in P32, is up into the top 15. What a race for him here. One of our RAM drivers, of course, in this season. Looking to also try and make another move here, looking to get up into P14 in this race. Of course, that'll be ahead of Ben Gregory, who's also one of our AM drivers. And this is a battle for P2 because Joe Coffin leads the AM category ahead of Gregory, and then Altria in P15/P3 as we do make our way through. And then look at the gap between Crowther and Meyer. It's down to just 9/10. That gap has flew down over the past few minutes, and we could have Anders Meyer up into the top 4 very, very shortly.
Yes, Meyer crawling in on Crowther. Of course, none of those drivers have pitted yet, so that's something interesting to think about, that with pit stops full and underway, about just under 18 minutes left in this race, I would imagine that we're going to see pits again. Payne Wilkins back into the pits for their second time. Danny McCauley now into the pits for their pit stop, as Martin Toth, well, for a second they looked like they were pitting, but Guthrie also into the pits as well. So now pit stops full and underway. Would not be surprised to see most of the field pit within the next 2 to 3 laps. Davidson trying to close in on Meyer as well for that top 5 spot. We saw how tooth and nail they fought last race, Nathan. I think it's going to be much of the same unless one of them decides they want to come in for service.
It certainly will be, and I'm sure that we'll see our drivers start to pit shortly with 17 minutes to go in this race. I think last time out the latest pit stops were around 12 to 13 minutes, so give it, the next 3 or 4 laps, we should see everybody, or pretty much everybody, in the pits for their pit stop in this race, as Altria is still looking to make a move, looking to try and get up into 14th. Samways as well is ahead of them as they make their way through, and this could get spicy through the Dunlop corner and in towards turns 11, 12 and 13, and they're still in the same spot as they were heading into there. And then Marley off as well is on the back of Martin Toth. That could be a great battle for P9.
Indeed it can, as we're watching Altria still trying to close in on 2nd place in AM, 14th place overall. Got one eye on the pit entry, one eye on the, and yeah, we're starting to see cars come in. So I believe that was Gregory who's into the pits in the 113. Indeed it is. So Gregory taking his mandatory pit stop, as, I don't know, Toth keeps blinking on and off on my timing stream. Starting to see if he's in the pits. We did see Gregory go in. We'll see how long of a pit stop he has. Mendaka, wow, a 9-second flat pit stop. So that's fun to see as well. So now the highest placed driver who is taking a pit, Ben Gregory for the time being.
Indeed, and Michael Gray, who we haven't actually seen this race at all, I don't think, is up into the top 12 here, gained 30 positions in this race so far. I think had a really poor start. I remember seeing him drop back near the rear end of the field on the first opening laps, but he's now up into a decent spot, but not really where he wants to be in terms of his class. I think he's P4 or 5 in class at the moment, as he does get ahead into P11. That's ahead of Joe Coffin, who's also started to drop back as this race has gone on. Was up by, I think was up 3 earlier on, and now he's down by 2. So possibly a little bit of pressure there getting to Joe Coffin in this one, part of the CCRC team, as Toth and Joff once again a battle for P9 and 10. Let's see what happens here between those two.
Yeah, Toth and Joff, really nice tooth and nail. Oh, look at where Boomy is. He's all over the back of Alistair Kirk, and I would not be surprised if Boomy comes in the next couple laps. Muska is into the pits. Here comes your race 1 winner, James Boomy, into the pits as he goes right, left. He's got to slam on the brakes to hit that 60 kilometer an hour mark, and now we get to see how the pit strategy works with most of the front runners coming in.
I mean, Boomy was absolutely flying into the pit lane. From my view, it looks like he was going to hit the barrier about 3 times on entry. That was some commitment by Boomy. He's in and he's straight out. A great pit stop there by him. 9.9 seconds. Muxka, 11.9. So, we see yet again James Boomy rapid in that pit lane.
here's something to think about too. Boomy, his in-lap, 42.5. Everybody else running 43.44 in-laps. So he's already a second faster than everybody else as Boomy comes out in front of, trying to see here as everything's still jostling around, but Boomy comes out really in a good position for something to happen here as he comes around through the Coca-Cola corner into 100R, but now the march to the front continues for our race 1 winner.
It certainly does. Pressure is on them heavily here in this one. I think the top 9 still have to pit in this race. Of course, Muxka is our net race leader as it currently stands. As we see more drivers now heading into the pit lane. Of course, getting their first and only pit stops done in this race. Watson, Meyer as well, Davidson all in on this lap. And, well, it'll be key to see where they come out compared to Muxka and Boomy and those behind, because, you know, they were all running a really good race, especially Meyer and Davidson, who started near the back and were up into the top 4 and 5 before they went into the pit stops.
Chaffee, Davidson, Gray, Coffin, Samways all into the pits. Myers into the pits as well. So Alistair Kirk, your leader on the track, but aggregate leader still is Muxka. We'll see how long that lasts. And we'll take a look at the outlaps here by Muxka, Lindmo, Crowther, and Boomy. Muxka 217, 214 out of Lindmo, 214.6 out of Crowther. What is Boomy's 213.7? That, ladies and gentlemen, is how you win races. But does that mean that we'll see what happens? He's 36 seconds behind Alistair Kirk at this time, and we'll see once Kirk pits how far behind he is of Watson.
Indeed, this is going to be key, isn't it, in this race? So they make their way through. Once again, turns 4 and 5, of course, a very tricky section. We know that in these cars, understeer can hit heavy, and that is not a place sometimes you really want to be following a car through. But Muxka and Watson are having a great little battle here. This is for the net race lead, of course. Davidson is there behind, Meyer as well. Lindmo as well up into the top 6. A great race for him in this one. And this certainly is going to be a dash to the line. 12 minutes to go, and this battle for the lead is nowhere near over yet.
Wait a second. Adam Watson sitting in second place. He's taken his pit stop. He is, 0.2 of a second ahead of Muxka as once again, Watson, of course, look who's also back there waiting. Davidson and Meyer, 4th and 5th. So this battle for the aggregate leaders. Kirk comes into the pit. So once the leaders pass pit road, this is going to be your battle for the lead. Kirk,
here we go.
With an in-lap of 45.4 is now your leaders are your true leaders on the track.
Indeed. And now Watson and Muxka battling down to turn 1. The great slipstream for the Mustang on the BMW. Is it going to be a move for the lead? As we do see Watson there defend the inside line. Tries to send Eric Muxka the long way around into turn 1. Further back there, that's a move. I think that might be... I think it was possibly Crowther on the back of Lindmo into turn 1. Watson still keeps the lead ahead of Muxka, but Davidson is closing in. And we saw earlier on in race 1 and earlier on in this race as well, he was flying and he was keen to be making moves, and he was making them at the right time into the right braking zones. So keep an eye on Alexander Davidson, of course, was the runner-up of season 17, the championship winner of season 16. Around the outside, he's going to look to jump up into P2.
Davidson right now into second place. Muxka now has to deal with Meyer, but Willie, as Davidson now has to defend off of second place. That's going to give Watson a 0.6 of a second advantage. Of course, slower cars are up ahead, so now these leaders have to deal with each other and lapped traffic as the field working their way around Dunlop corner. 9 minutes 45 seconds left to go in this race, and what a fantastic race we have seen for race 2. Race 1 was good, but this is absolutely spectacular as now Davidson closes in on Watson. It's a battle for the overall lead and pro lead as the WSR Esports Mustang wants that top spot.
Certainly does. And we go back down to turn 1 once again. Watson and Davidson battling for the lead. Muxka and Meyer battling for P3. Then further back we have Crowther and Lindmo battling for P5 and 6. We've got battles everywhere here. That you look. Down to turn 1 we go. Davidson's on the outside of Watson. We have Meyer up the inside of Muxka into the first couple of corners. Slight bit of contact there between our two leaders. Davidson looking to go to the outside. Contact once again, but it's the inside here for Alexander Davidson into Coca-Cola corner at turn 3. Who will come out in the lead? Is it the BMW? Is it the Mustang? Contact again, and still Watson keeps the lead.
For the time being, as Watson has that nose at BMW out front as Davidson tries to look to the outside. He's going to try something there. Look who's coming to play also. It's Anders Meyer in the Mustang as well. So it's BMW, Mustang, your top 3. Muxka, he's the interested spectator sitting there in 4th place. So now things have calmed down just a little bit as Martin Toth sitting back there in 11th spot. But look at this, side by side. Davidson gets the inside advantage for now. Little bit of bumping there by Myers. He's now in 2nd place. Watson gets back that 2nd place. As you're on board with Muxka, you see these cars all battling each other in the second half of the race. Myers moved back to 4th with Muxka in 3rd.
Indeed, and there we can see Watson not happy because it was a right lunge to the inside by Davidson, probably a little bit too overboard there by Alexander Davidson, but he takes the lead. He's now ahead of Watson, who will be looking to try and close in, but behind him is Muxka and Meyer, who are also looking to try and take 2nd and 3rd in this race as we head our way back down to turn 1. Muxka in the Mustang has a great slipstream into that braking zone, and behind Meyer, who's got Crowther closing in as well as we head into turn 1. Who's going to be in P2? Is it Muxka or is it going to be Adam Watson, who was leading? Got shuffled wide at Dunlop and now could be at risk of losing that P2, but just for now, he's defended that 2nd place, and I've got to say, Jeremy, his defence has been absolutely brilliant so far.
Well, tip of the cap to Muxka. I actually want to thank the viewers on YouTube for correcting us on that, as Muxka, the top Pro-Am driver, doing all he can to get that overall lead. Here comes Meyer to the inside of Muxka for that 3rd spot overall. They're side by side through the corner, so a little bit of a sweeper there into the right-hander, setting themselves up through 300R. It's still Muxka over Meyer for the time being, as Meyer thinks discretion's a better part of valor. You got 6.5 minutes left to go in this race. Anything can happen. I think that he's going to try something there, because that's where we see Meyer make most of his moves. The good news is Davidson has walked away from this battle, as now he lets Watson, Muxka, and Meyer all battle each other. Also, look at this. Crowther, Lindmo, and Boomy, they're closing it as well.
They certainly are. This could be a grandstand finish here around Fuji. 6 minutes to go in this race. Crowther up the inside of Meyer. Can he get that move done? Yes, he can. It's going to be close. It's going to be side by side as we head back down towards turn number 1. Of course, this has been the hot spot for overtakes over these past couple of laps. Meyer now under pressure from Crowther. They're also both trying to gain in on the back of Eric Muxka. What a line and what a slipstream this has been here for Meyer. He pulls to the outside of Eric Muxka to try and get back up into P3 as they head into turn number 1. It's the outside line here for the number 20. Who's going to get the better exit? It will be Anders Meyer, who will then have the inside line for turn 3 at the Coca-Cola corner.
I'll tell you what, Muxka's not giving any room to anyone around. He knows he's in the Pro-Am class, battling with a bunch of ants, but he's trying to show these guys that he does belong here. Another driver that's a Pro-Am in the top 10, a couple cars back, that Lindmo is, oh man, Crowther goes to the inside. He's going to go side by side for position. Gonna get it for now, so your top 4 all-pro drivers for the time being. How much longer does that last? As now Boomy's trying to get around Lindmo for position as well. A couple of altitude-free esports drivers all mixed in with battle, and if you're the team manager for this altitude-free esports, you've got to be happy because you've got 3 cars at least in the top 10.
Indeed. What a race it's been for that team, and as we continue on, it's still not over here. Crowther under pressure from Muxka, and of course, give it time, I'm sure James Boomy will be entering this battle. Up the inside goes Muxka. I think it was a bit deep there for Crowther, and that does give another opportunity to the Pro-Am driver. And of course, behind him is 2nd place in that category, Hakon Lindmo, as we head back down towards turn 1. Of course, Davidson has dispatched the field, but we have Watson and Meyer having a battle. We have Crowther and Muxka having a battle. Down towards turn number 1 we go. Once again, 4 minutes to go. Not many laps left in this Grand Prix, or this race, I should say. Getting too used to Formula 1 myself as we head into turn 1. Maya looking to get ahead once again, looking to take that outside line.
And Davidson has a 2.3 second advantage between Watson and Meyer. I would say we got about 3 laps of hard-nosed racing left to go as Crowther goes up to 4th place. I think Boomy's good where he's at, top 5 in pro. Not a bad start to the season, but still a lot of things can happen. I'm not counting either of them out as Crowther and Muchka still side by side for 5th place here on the overhead camera. Muchka thinks better of it. That gives Boomy a chance to go to the outside. He's going to go wide in the hairpin, but he's not going to be able to get the advantage that he wants there. He's still got to hold off Lindmo, as right now he's hoping that Crowther can hold everybody back, and they're going to go to the outside, heading into the Dunlop corner. Right now, Boomy has what he needs, 3 wide going into Dunlop, but is able to get into the top 5. This race may not be over yet.
That was a close one there, nearly. Boomy being sent round. Of course, that was Muxka who was battling with him as they continue their way on. 3 minutes to go in this race. The battle for P1, 2 and 3 is over for 4th and below, but for P2 and 3, that battle is still contested. Watson and Meyer. Crowther still in the top 4 as we head back down towards turn 1 again. Of course, the hot spot for overtakes. Here comes Meyer to the inside of Watson, had a perfect exit out of turn 16 at Panasonic corner and has already pulled ahead before they get past the pit lane. Into P2 goes Anders Meyer, but will it be a dart to the inside for Adam Watson? He's thinking about it. No. Pulls to the outside line as they head into turn number 1. And let's see who's going to be ahead. Of course, the outside line worked for Meyer, but it won't work there for Adam Watson. And for now, it's Anders Meyer up into the top 2 in this race as we have 2 minutes to go. I don't think this one's over at all, Jeremy.
I don't think it is either, because Boomy's made his way up to 4th place. So now let's see if Watson gives way to Boomy to attack Meyer. But Meyer's just been so good in the second half of both races as a lap car separates the 2 of them as they work their way around the circuit, and watching more battles all around the circuit. Johan Rowe are trying to get around a couple of Pro-Am drivers. You got Jaffa behind them, but still lots of great battles here in the top 10. It'll be white flag this time by for your leader, Alex Davidson. The WSR Esports Mustang will come to have the final lap. You saw him just go through our camera shot coming out of the Dunlop corner. Now working his way through, and so far this has been a calmer, in spite of everybody being close together, Nathan, it's been a pretty calm second half of the race.
It certainly has been, and of course, the last lap we go on to probably shortly, this will be the most chaotic one we have, because this is where there's pretty much nothing to lose here. You've got to start making moves on this last lap if you want to be finishing up in the top 3, or at least just making moves and finishing up comfortably in that top 10. And of course, we have a battle for, well, the battle for P2 and 3 is over. Watson's dropped back. We still have a battle for P5 and 6, 7th and 8th as well with, oh, Rain. Last lap of the race, Rain's arrived.
Oh, this is going to be mayhem right here as Davidson still holds on to a 3-second lead. How long will that last as Lindmo trying to hold off, Jaffa trying to get around Griggs as well, but nonetheless, it is going to be a wet and wild last lap as everybody having to deal with the wetness on dry tires. Oh, this is going to be worth the price of admission if you are watching, if you're racing, because this is where talent shines through. And this is more than a little light rain, Nathan. This is a heavy rain as we got 13 seconds left to go. Everybody jostling around Rauer, around Muchka for that 6th spot. So your Pro-Am leader now sitting down in 7th, still nothing to sneeze at. I'm seeing Meyer close in on Davidson, but it might be too little too late for the number 20 because the 55 is just too good coming around the Dunlop corner. This is the battle for 7th, 8th, and 9th place as Rauer, Muchka, Jaffe, 6th, 7th, and 8th as Jaffe gets around Muchka. And look at this, just jostling everywhere. Griggs decides he wants a part in it. I think Muchka is having some problems here with the wet weather, but this part part of the circuit, it is dry. Lindmo and Muchka battling for the Pro-Am lead, but it will be Alex Davidson who will take the win coming off of the final corner. Yeah, the rain's coming down once again. It's going to be absolute mayhem, but Davidson finally gets that lead in the WSR Esports Mustang. He will take the checker flag in race number 2 with Anders Meyer sitting in second place for the time being, and that's exactly where he'll finish. But gotta say this, Adam Watson third place, but what a fantastic drive from James Boomy. Comes from last to fourth here in race number 2. Muchka finishes off as your Pro-Am leader.
Indeed, my question is, where did Tom Griggs come from? P8 in that one, was nowhere near that earlier on. A top 10 finish for him. Muxka and Lindmo as well up in the top 10 for their class. What a race we've had this evening. This has been superb. I mean, I expected chaos in race 2, and I expected attrition and carnage and every other word you could think, but didn't expect it to be at this level. What a race we've had this evening, still having cars battling side by side to the line. But Alexander Davidson, a top class drive.
And your AM winner there is going to be Ben Altria, so 2 for 2 for the AM category. So that's great to see that happen. It looks like that we're going to have everybody finish with the proper amount of gas. I believe Hedgecock was one of the ones we just saw cross the line, and indeed he crossed the line under full power, unlike last race. So that's always good to see as well. That's Tommy Vidal. We saw him up near the front in the last race. Unfortunately, finishes off in 34th place.
Indeed, but there we go.
There are your results. Alex Davidson with the win in the WSR Esports Mustang. Then Anders Meyer. Adam Watson, what a great showing. His first race doubleheader in the pro class, finishes off in third in race 2. James Boomy, then Johan Rauer, Marley Jaffa. Harrison Crowther finishes 7th. Tom Griggs, yeah, where did he come from? From 8th. Your Pro-Am winner, Eric Muchka, and Hakan Ida Lindmo finishes off in the top 10, Nathan.
Indeed, and then P11, it was Ross McFarlane who did make a really good comeback after contact and damage on the first couple of laps. He finishes ahead of Alistair Kirk, who reigns off the podium for the Pro-Am category. Michael Gray in P13, our winner from race 1. And then we had Martin Toth in 14th, Arthur Thurtle as well in the top 15 ahead of Andy Archer, Jack Osborne, David Mendoka in P18, Phil Samways in 19th, and then our winner of the the M category, the number 504 of Ben Altria.
As you take a look at 21st, it's Joey Petrie, Joe Coffin, second in the AM category, with William Guthrie finishing 23rd. Rounding out your podium in the AM category is Frank Sikorsky, finishing off 24th. Then it's Ben Gregory, Aiden Carter, Drew Fletcher, Tom Griffiths, Jacques Eva, and Chris Chatterton, rounding out your top 30.
Indeed, and then it's Brian Loynes in P31. Not a good race for Michael Evdoka in P32 for the Pro-Am category. Then it was Adam Hedgecock in 33rd ahead of Tommy Vidal. In 34th, we have Daniel McCauley, John Roberts, Howard Hassan, Kevin Simpson, Dickie Simnor, and then Paul Smith in the top 40.
And we'll round out your field with John Williams a lap down in the 906. Taylor Lane, the number 32, sitting 42nd. Colin Sampson, what could have been up front, but still finishes 43rd. Ben Bennyworth, Dennis Grabowski, and of course out of the race, Jesse Paynes-Wilkins, Elliot Roberts, Jonathan Walker, Matthias Pirinen, Adam Tompkins. And that is your 50 drivers for the second race of the day. Let's first of all, this has been a fantastic race here as we're waiting for some of the drivers to arrive. No surprise here that Alex Davidson was really up near the front in race 1, and then once he sniffed the lead, he was able to get it.
Yeah, definitely. I think, like we saw in race 1, he was one of those where you kind of saw he knew the perfect place to overtake, the perfect place to defend. In race 2, he put all that practice to work and got the move done immediately. Probably was a little bit overboard. It was a bit of a send into Dunlop, but that's a corner you've got to just commit. He committed, got ahead, then just pulled away, and that was perfect for his race. Of course, taking the win in the end after a decent race 1, a decent race 2. certainly I think could put him right up at the top of the championship already, heading into round number 2. And then, of course, a great race from James Boomey. Started 50th on the grid and finished in P4. Another commendable drive. And then, of course, Ross McFarlane, who we know that on lap 1, dropped all the way to the back of the field after contact and damage, but still finished in that top 11. So commendable race for him as well, to still score some decent points. But I think comments towards Ben Altria and I think also Michael Gray, they have just, I think, outclassed their category this evening.
It's going to be interesting to see how the rest of the season goes. Of course, if you liked what you saw tonight, guess what? We're back at it next weekend as well. You see the Shell V-Power Motorsport at the Bend is our next race, about the same time that you had here on RaceSpotTV. Then we go to Silverstone, Algarve, Road America, which I'm so looking forward to, an endurance at Road America. And we go to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, jet set over to La Sarthe for the 24-hour Du Mans circuit, then the Spa, Barcelona, Catalunya, and over to Montreal, Sonoma, and the Daytona International Speedway for the feature race. Of course, this championship is an absolute blast. I can't wait for next week, Nathan, and I'm sure you can't either.
I certainly can't. The Bend, like I said before, haven't commentated there, haven't raced there at all, so it's a brand new experience and one I can't wait for. Of course, that's if we're back in the commentary booth next time out, and I believe we do have Anders Meyer waiting for an interview with us.
Yeah, let's go to Anders Meyer real quick, the driver who basically was up near the front. We'll grab him real quick and then we'll have to jet set ourselves. As Anders, first of all, congratulations. You've had a couple of great races there. We thought you were going to take that Racing Lab Esports Mustang up to the pointy end, but it was all for naught. But still, you got to hang your hat on some top 5 finishes.
Yeah, thank you. I wasn't too happy with qualifying. I messed up my final lap. Probably, ifs and buts, but maybe P2. And I wasn't really happy with race 1. I feel like I got messed up a bit by some of the other guys after the pit stop, and I couldn't really make any moves from there. So I was pretty down after race 1, but race 2 was crazy. I don't know what to say. I don't know how many places I gained there on the first couple of laps, and trying to stay away from trouble and trying not to be the guy that I hate and dive bomb everyone. But sometimes you just see someone braking so early that you just have to go for it, even though you don't mean to be an asshole. But it's you have to make decisions so quick. I hope I didn't mess up for anyone. I don't think so, but if I did, then I'm sorry. But yeah, I think it was clean, and obviously when I got pushed off by the BMW there at the end, it was impossible to fight Davidson from there. So P2 was the best I could do. So yeah, but I'm still overall happy with the both races altogether.
And of course, also at the end, how slick was it? Because we did see the rain fall down in that final lap, essentially, because we knew the rain was coming, we just didn't know when.
Yeah, I didn't have anything to fight for at that point, so I just took it really calm on the last lap in case it got slippery, but I didn't even notice anything. But considering the weather forecast, it was gonna be the final couple of minutes, and luckily it ended up that way. Otherwise, it could have been a bit exciting on the last lap. But yeah, luckily the rain stayed away mostly.
Next week is the Bend, heading off to the land down under. What are you most excited about?
First of all, trying the track. I haven't even bought it yet, so I'm looking forward to see how the track is. I haven't even watched a stream or anything of it, so I'm not sure what I'm heading into, but I'll try our best. Practice a lot with Tommy. Obviously, he was very unlucky today, but he has the pace, so he will bounce back, and we will try to do our best at the next one.
All right, we'll see you next week. Anders Meyer, your driver in the number 20 Racing Lab Esports Mustang. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Well, Nathan, with that, we're going to wrap things up for week number 1. What are your final thoughts?
I mean, I expected an interesting race just because of how big the grid was and the track we was at, but didn't quite expect what we actually got. I mean, I think we had so much battling, but the main thing for me was it was all clean. There was a few little scuffles at the start, but some of the battling we had at the midpoint and the end of both races was brilliant, and it's what we love to see. Clean, hard racing between our GT3 drivers. And also a quick note as well is that it's great to see the pros, the pro-ams and the AMs all fighting each other, not just seeing a group of pros, a group of pro-ams and a group of AMs. We had all three categories mixing up in this evening, and that's what we love to see for a championship. And with the calendar we've got this season, I think it's just going to get better and better as we move our way on.
And again, next week we head off to the Bend, which Shell V Power Motorsport the Bend. It's a long mouthful, so that's going to be fun to go to for the first visit. I know I've got a lot of homework, and you do as well, Nathan. So for the entire RaceSpot crew, Hugo Luis Calma making it sound oh so good back in world headquarters, and Nathan Richards, my partner here. I'm Jeremy Scott. We'll see you next week here on RaceSpot TV for the second round of the World GT Championship.